हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम बैक। आज हम सीए इंटरमीडिएट के कॉस्टिंग के एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग सेशन में हैं और आज का सेशन है पूरी तरह से कॉस्टिंग की थ्योरी पे फोकस करके। देखिए, कॉस्टिंग इज अ प्रैक्टिकल सब्जेक्ट, आई एग्री, लेकिन बहुत बार ऐसा होता है कि हम थ्योरेटिकल पार्ट की तरफ थोड़ा सा निग्लेक्शन करते हैं या निग्लेक्ट करते हैं। तो कितना अच्छा होगा अगर कोई आए और हमें एक वीडियो में बताए कि हर एक पॉइंट पे या हर एक क्वेश्चन पे 5 पॉइंट्स बताए, तो कितना मजा आ जाए। तो ये आज इस वीडियो में होने वाला है। मैं क्वेश्चन उठाऊंगा, 5 पॉइंट्स में उसका आंसर बताऊंगा, 5 to 6 पॉइंट्स, और आगे बढ़ेंगे। तो एकदम बढ़िया क्वेश्चन वीडियो होगा आपके लिए कि थ्योरी का कुछ भी आया तो क्या लिखना है। ओके, तो शुरुआत करते हैं आपके प्यारे टॉपिक स्टैंडर्ड कॉस्टिंग से। एक बार ऑनलाइन चेक कर लेते हैं, लाइव है, वेरी गुड। तो चलिए 1 मिनट में जरा कैमरा का सेटिंग ठीक से कर लूं। ओके, चलो फिर शुरू करते हैं स्टैंडर्ड कॉस्टिंग के साथ। कंफर्म चालू कर दूं? यस, थैंक यू। सो पहला सवाल आता है, व्हाट इज स्टैंडर्ड कॉस्ट। ये स्टैंडर्ड कॉस्ट क्या होता है, स्टैंडर्ड क्या होता है, बेसिकली स्टैंडर्ड कॉस्ट क्या होता है और स्टैंडर्ड कॉस्टिंग क्या होता है। 5 से 6 पॉइंट्स में बताऊंगा, ज्यादा झिकझिक नहीं करूंगा। टाइम किसके पास है भाई अभी। स्टैंडर्ड मीन्स प्री डिफाइंड, समथिंग विच इज डिफाइंड वेल इन एडवांस इज कॉल्ड एज स्टैंडर्ड। जैसे आप हर एक बर्गर मैकडोनल्ड में जाओगे तो बर्गर सेम ही होगा, सो दैट इज स्टैंडर्ड। सो पॉइंट 1, स्टैंडर्ड इज समथिंग विच इज प्री डिफाइंड and which is to be followed by everyone. Standard cost, it's a predefined cost because in costing the costs are predicted at the beginning of the year. So standard cost is a predefined cost. Point number 3, for example, if in the next year the overheads are expected to be 3 lakh in 50,000 machine hours, then the standard cost comes to rupees 6 per machine hour. So it's a pre-decided cost. What is standard costing? Standard costing is a system in which, point number 4, in which we compare the actual results with the standard and the difference is calculated, which is called as deviation or variance, variance, whatever you call it as. And last point, in standard costing we can compare each and every part of the cost so that we can find out the exact reason for the difference between expected profit, that is standard profit, and actual profit, or expected, that is standard cost, and actual cost. You can give the example. For example, material price variance or material cost variances will give us an idea about the reasons for the difference between standard material cost and actual material cost. 5 to 6 points, काम खत्म, ज्यादा नहीं सोचना है, राइट। आगे बढ़ते। ये थे, हाँ, ये वीडियो आप क्या कर सकते हो, आप ये वीडियो स्पीड बढ़ा के देख सकते हो, क्योंकि आपके अगर एग्जाम पास में तो आपको स्पीड लगेगा, तो आप जरूर स्पीड बढ़ा के बाद में देख लीजिए। सर ये नोट्स हमें कहाँ पे मिलेगी, तो इसी वीडियो के डिस्क्रिप्शन में इसकी लिंक डाली हुई है, वहां पे क्लिक कीजिए और नोट्स डाउनलोड कर लीजिए, सिंपल। सर आपसे अगर बात करनी है तो हम कैसे करें, तो यहाँ पे आपको नंबर दे देता हूँ, 8237218218। यू कैन कनेक्ट विद अस, जो भी हेल्प चाहिए हम आपके लिए करेंगे, ठीक है। सो चलिए, वेबसाइट भी है यहाँ पे, नाम आपको दिख रहा है। अगला सवाल लेते हैं, what is the interconnection between standard costing and budgetary control? Simple 5 points. Budgetary control is an extremely important topic in which we have seen that we prepare budgets for our organization in advance. There are multiple budgets prepared like sales budget, production budget, labor cost budget, material consumption budget, etc. So at the end of this budget, we get the combined budget called as master budget, which gives us the budgeted, that is expected sales, budgeted cost and budgeted profit. This activity is done at the beginning of the year. 3 points हो गए। Point number 4, standard costing is a system which comes into picture at the end of the year. It compare, point number 4, it compare the actual cost with the standard cost. Point number 5, standard costing is also called as, or is also, it also includes variance, that is variance analysis, in which the reasons are found why there is a difference between the standard profit which was given by budgetary control and the actual profit which is calculated at the end of the year, and the detailed analysis is done. Point number 6, we can conclude that budgetary control and standard costing are supporting techniques to each other. 6 points, काम खत्म। आगे बढ़ते हैं, discuss the advantages and disadvantages of standard costing. The advantages of standard costing can be as follows. First, we can find out the reasons for the difference between budgeted, मतलब आपका जो सपना था वो profit, and actual profit. Point number 2, the standard cost is decided well in advance, so every department knows how much cost is allowed to be paid. In advantages, of course, we are in advantages. Point number 3, we can compare the actual results with the standard result. Point number 4, with the help of variance analysis or variance analysis, we can find out who is responsible for increasing the cost or reduction of profit, if any. These are the advantages. Limitations can be, if the standard cost is not properly defined, then the comparison goes in when, uska koi fayda nahi hoga. Second, if the data is not provided about the actual cost, then again comparison is of no use. Third, the standard cost is decided well in advance, but the actual cost is calculated at the end of the year. Thus, if there is any abnormal condition, then that should also be checked. Otherwise, the analysis will go in vain. So in this way, there are so many advantages of standard costing and variance analysis with few limitations. Properly close करो, आपका काम हो जाएगा, right? तो चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं. अगर ये हाँ ब्लिंक हो गया तो मैं कर लूंगा एडजस्ट. Next point comes to what are the preliminaries required for establishment of standard costing. आपको अगर standard costing system, आप एक organization में join होते हो और आपने देखा अरे इधर तो standard costing ही नहीं है, तो वो अगर implement करना है तो आपको क्या क्या steps लेनी होगी या क्या requirement होगी. First, establishment of cost centers. What is cost center? जिसके लिए आप cost calculate करते हो. जैसे हम कहते हैं इस machine का इतना खर्चा हुआ, क्लासेस में आप कह सकते हो इस बैच का इतना खर्चा हुआ, इस ब्रांच का इतना खर्चा हुआ. सो एस्टेब्लिशमेंट ऑफ कॉस्ट सेंटर, किस चीज के लिए आप कॉस्ट निकालने वाले. सो पॉइंट नंबर 1, द फर्स्ट स्टेप शुड बी एस्टेब्लिशमेंट ऑफ कॉस्ट सेंटर. कॉस्ट सेंटर मीन्स समथिंग फॉर विच द कॉस्ट इज कैलकुलेटेड. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, कॉस्ट पर मशीन कैन बी कैलकुलेटेड, कॉस्ट पर क्लासरूम कैन बी कैलकुलेटेड, एक्सेट्रा. Classification of account, then we have to classify the accounts. That means the cost classification must be done. Whatever amount is paid, is it related with material, is it related with wages, overheads? The codes are given and accordingly the cost is distributed. And then at the end, you have to go for comparison. So there must be a proper system to record the actual cost and also the proper system to make the comparison. So these are the points required to analyze the standard cost or implement the standard cost in your organization. I repeat, आज का वीडियो क्या है, आपको 4 से 5 पॉइंट्स हर एक क्वेश्चन के मैं दे रहा हूं. डिस्कस द कंसेप्ट एनालिसिस ऑफ वैरिएंस. वैरिएंस और वेरिएंस वेरिएबल वर्ड से आया है. सो पॉइंट नंबर 1, अगेन 5 to 6 पॉइंट. पॉइंट नंबर 1, वेरिएंस इज द वर्ड विच इज डिराइव्ड फ्रॉम द वर्ड वेरिएबल. इट इंडिकेट्स द चेंज. At the beginning of every year, the budgetary control gives us the standard profit, standard cost and standard sales, which are to be compared with actual. At the end of the year, we get the actual data and then the comparison starts. The difference between standard and actual is called as deviation or variance or variance, and it is very important tool for analysis. Point number 5, here all the costs are heading by heading compared with all the actual costs are heading by heading compared with the standard cost, and at the end we come up with the reasons why there is a difference between total profit or total sales or total cost. If point number 6, if the difference is positive, say cost is saved or sales are increased or profit is increased, then it is called as favorable variance. And if it is negative, like cost is increased, profit is reduced, sales are reduced, then it is called as the adverse variance. So it is an important tool for every management to decide the responsibility of increase in cost or reduction of profit. 6 to 8 points are given. Khatam, simple. Next, short note comes on direct material cost variance. Point number 1, direct material is an extremely important factor in the cost sheet of any manufacturing concern. Point number 2, at the beginning of the year, the standard cost is pre-decided and then it is compared with the actual cost, so it becomes an important task. Many of the times, point number 3, many of the times the standard cost and actual cost varies and we find some variance in that, and there are basically 2 reasons for this difference. The total difference, point number 4, the total difference is called as total material cost variance, the formula of which is standard cost, that is allowed cost versus actual cost paid. Point number 5, then total cost variance is further divided in 2 parts. Material price variance, which indicates the difference between standard price and actual price, and then material usage variance, which indicates the difference between expected, that is standard, that is allowed quantity to be used, and actual quantity used. Point number 4, the material usage variance can further be divided in two parts, that is material mix variance, which indicates if there is any change in mixture of raw material combination, and finally the material yield variance, which gives us the difference or variance due to input output ratio. Last point, in this way, considering all these variances, it will give us the exact idea about the reasons why there is a difference between expected, that is standard, and actual cost. If you want, you can show the diagram also, such like this. You can give the diagram total cost variance. ये थोड़ा डिस्टर्ब हो गया, एडजस्ट कर लो. यहाँ पे आएगा total cost variance, total cost variance. यहाँ पे आएगा material price variance, material usage variance. Usage में दो आएंगे, mix variance and yield variance. Sorry, ये थोड़ा डिस्टर्ब हो गया. तो ऐसे और उसके फॉर्मूले भी लिख दो if you want to. So in this way you can get very good short note on costing, that is material cost variance. एक सेकंड, मैसेज आया देख लेते हैं. अरे वाह, वेरी गुड, वेरी नाइस. भाविक, थैंक यू. अच्छा लगा कि आप आगे बढ़ रहे हो करियर में. गुड. सो कमिंग बैक टू दिस नाउ, मटेरियल प्राइस वेरिएंस हो गया. ये डिटेल में अगर आपको जाना है तो ये नोट्स आप जस्ट इसी वीडियो के नीचे डिस्क्रिप्शन में जाइए, आपको लिंक मिल जाएगी. डायरेक्ट लेबर कॉस्ट वेरिएंस, सेम वे, एग्जैक्टली सेम पैटर्न में आपको आंसर लिखना है. फॉर एनी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग और सर्विस इंडस्ट्री द डायरेक्ट लेबर कॉस्ट बिकम्स एन इंपॉर्टेंट कॉस्ट. एट द सेम पैटर्न में सिर्फ आपको वर्ड चेंज करना है. एट द बिगिनिंग ऑफ द ईयर द direct cost is decided, called as standard cost, and at the end of the year the actual cost is compared with that, but there is a difference which can be positive, that is favorable, or negative, adverse, called as variance. The total difference is called as total direct labor cost variance. Next point, it is further divided in two parts. First variance, labor rate variance, indicates the difference due to the difference in wage rates, and the labor efficiency variance indicates the difference due to the efficiency of worker. अगर उन्होंने टाइम पास किया, it will go to adverse, and if they are efficient, it will go to the favorable variance. Next point, further the efficiency variance can be divided in two parts. Labor mix variance, where we can get the difference due to the combination of skilled and unskilled and semi-skilled worker, and yield variance comes with the input output ratio. That means labor hours input versus output units. So last point, in this way labor cost variance will give us the exact idea to decide the responsibility of change in labor cost. So it's a important rule. Exactly same लिखना है आपको, बस variances के नाम बदलने हैं, और अगर possible हुआ तो वहां पे भी आप आपका ट्री डायग्राम दे दीजिए. राइट, तो ये डिटेल में नोट्स है. अगर आपको लगता है तो यू कैन गो थ्रू इट. कोई भी क्वेश्चन अगर लगता है यार ये जरा देख लेते हैं तो यू कैन गो थ्रू इट. फिक्स ओवरहेड वेरिएंस के बारे में भी वही आपको लिखना है. फिर से एक बार आपको ये पॉइंट जरूर डालना चाहिए ऐसे मुझे लगता है फिक्स ओवरहेड वेरिएंस में. आई ट्राई टू गिव द आंसर. फिक्स ओवरहेड वेरिएंस इज द वेरिएंस व्हिच गिव्स अस द डिफरेंस बिटवीन एक्सपेक्टेड फिक्स कॉस्ट रिकवर्ड वर्सेस एक्चुअल फिक्स कॉस्ट पेड. क्योंकि आप बोलोगे एक्चुअल कॉस्ट तो उतनी होगी ना सर, रेंट जितना डिसाइड हुआ उतना ही होने वाला है. रिकवर्ड. तो नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, इट इज द टोटल डिफरेंस इन एक्सपेक्टेड रिकवरी ऑफ फिक्स कॉस्ट एंड एक्चुअल रिकवरी ऑफ फिक्स कॉस्ट इज कॉल्ड एज टोटल फिक्स कॉस्ट वेरिएंस. फॉर एग्जांपल, अब एग्जांपल दे दो. मिस्टर ए या ए लिमिटेड agreed to pay the rent of 50,000 assuming that it will manufacture 5,000 units in a month. So the standard cost per unit comes to 10 rupees. But actually instead of 5,000 it produced only 4,000 units. Means even if the company has paid 50,000, the recovery was 4,000 into 10, 40,000 only. This 10,000 difference is called as unfavorable या adverse total fixed overhead variance. Best example हो गया. Next point, the fixed overhead variance is further divided in three parts, basically two parts. First is fixed overhead budget variance and fixed overhead volume variance. Budget variance indicates how much is the difference between budgeted fixed cost and actual fixed cost paid. Then the volume variance indicates the reason why there is a difference, because sometimes due to the more volume the fixed cost also, recovery also changes, or lesser volume. Next point, the further fixed overhead volume variance is further divided in three parts: capacity, efficiency and calendar. The capacity variance, let's start with efficiency. Next point, the fixed overhead efficiency variance indicates how efficiently worker has worked and recovered the fixed cost. Next point, capacity variance indicates for how many hours the workers were working in the given time span. And third, next point, the calendar variance indicates how many days the workers were working in the given time span. Last point, in this way, all these formulae will help us to understand the exact reason for the difference between expected and actual fixed overhead. Next comes sales variances. You can write so many points on this because there are two types of variances, as you know. So you can say the sales variance is divided in two parts. First, turnover variance, which indicates the expected difference between expected and actual sales. Point number two, the sales margin variance indicates the difference between expected and actual profit. Point number three, in turnover variances, the total difference in expected and actual sales is called as total sales variance, which is divided in two parts. That is, it can be due to the change in selling price, so sales price variance, or maybe due to change in expected and actual quantity, sales quantity variance. The quantity variance is further divided in sales mix variance, like combination of product to be sold, or sales budget variance. And then the margin variance basically indicates the difference between expected and actual profit. It is further divided in two parts, basically sales margin price variance and sales margin quantity variance. And then the quantity is again divided into mix and yield. Just elaborate if you want, draw a tree diagram. फॉर्मूले नहीं लिखेंगे फिर भी चलेगा, आपका काम हो जाएगा, राइट? मैंने स्टैंडर्ड कॉस्टिंग इसलिए पहले चुना क्योंकि जनरल इसी का डर लगता है ना हमें, तो मैंने सोचा वही पहले ले लेते हैं. और अगर वेरिएबल ओवरहेड वैरिएंस पूछा तो उसमें तो तीन ही है. सो वेरिएबल ओवरहेड इज द कॉस्ट विच चेंजेस विद द लेवल ऑफ प्रोडक्शन. So generally it can be predicted simply, but many times there is a difference between actual and expected variable cost also, which is called as total cost variance. Total cost is further divided in two parts, variable overhead price variance and variable overhead efficiency variance. Variable overhead price variance indicates the difference due to change in price. For example, electricity rates suddenly changed. And the variable overhead efficiency variance indicates the change in indicates the efficiency of workers, that is they have completed the production in time or they have delayed. So in this way, the variable overhead variances include only three analysis variances, and at the end we come to know the exact reason of why there is a difference between expected and actual variable overheads and who is responsible for it. So this was all about the स्टैंडर्ड कॉस्टिंग एंड द थ्योरेटिकल पार्ट ऑफ स्टैंडर्ड कॉस्टिंग. कैसा लगा आपको मुझे बताओ. आई रिपीट कि इसके नीचे, इसी वीडियो के नीचे लिंक में ये नोट्स मैंने आपके लिए रखी है, तो आपका काम हो जाएगा. ठीक है, मैं थोड़ा पानी मंगवा लेता हूँ क्योंकि इतना फास्ट जा रहा हूँ ना, तो थोड़ा सा पानी. जस्ट अ सेकेंड. हाँ, चलो अब बढ़ते हैं आगे. एक और इंटरेस्टिंग चैप्टर, मार्जिनल कॉस्टिंग एंड डिसीजन मेकिंग. मेरा बहुत फेवरेट सब टॉपिक है, वैसे स्टैंडर्ड भी बहुत फेवरेट है. सो मार्जिनल कॉस्टिंग में हम क्या करते हैं, अलग अलग फॉर्मूले. देखा जाए तो बहुत कुछ डिफिकल्ट नहीं है. अभी आज मैं सिखाने को नहीं बैठूंगा क्योंकि अगर आपकी एग्जाम सर पे घूम रही है तो आज क्या सीखेंगे हम, राइट? तो मार्जिनल कॉस्टिंग में थ्योरी क्या हो सकता है. सो बेसिकली मार्जिनल कॉस्ट, ये वर्ड ही हमने इकोनॉमिक्स में देखा था. डिफरेंशियल कॉस्ट, अगर मैं एक प्रोडक्ट बना रहा हूँ 10 रुपए लग रहे हैं, एक सिमिलर और प्रोडक्ट बना रहा हूँ, ये सिमिलर नहीं है वैसे, और 12 रुपए लग रहे हैं, तो 2 रुपीज इज अ डिफरेंशियल कॉस्ट, दैट इज मार्जिनल कॉस्ट. सो बेसिकली मार्जिनल कॉस्ट मींस वेरिएबल कॉस्ट. चलिए देखते हैं. डिस्कस द कंसेप्ट मार्जिनल कॉस्ट एंड इट्स यूटिलिटी. अगेन 5 पॉइंट्स में आंसर देंगे. Marginal cost, as per economics, marginal cost is the additional cost of one additional unit produced. For example, if 100 units are produced by paying 1000 and 101 units are produced by paying 1200, then 200 is a marginal cost. As per costing, it is simply the variable cost. Thus, marginal cost is nothing but variable cost which changes proportionately with the change in production. Marginal cost is an extremely important cost for any decision making. Reason being, the fixed cost is always same in any decision, and that is why for decision making, marginal cost is most important factor. Point number 4, thus marginal cost is also called as relevant cost for decision making. The knowledge of marginal cost will help the business owner to take a perfect decision, and the person knowing marginal cost can take the decisions like make or buy decision. हम बनाए या बाहर से ले ले, stop the production or stop a particular product or continue, starting a new product or not, entering in a new market or not. Conclusion, point number 6, thus behind every perfect decision there is a perfect knowledge of marginal costing which is forever useful to the decision maker. Simple 6 points, right? I repeat, ये वीडियो अगर आप लाइव देख रहे हो तो ठीक है, आपको फास्ट ट्रैक नहीं देख पाओगे आप, लेकिन अगर आप बाद में कभी भी देख रहे हो, जैसे आज रात को देख रहे हो, फटाफट स्पीड बढ़ा के हो सकता है. So what is CVP analysis? CVP analysis is the point number 1, cost, volume and profit analysis. In this is basically an extension of marginal costing. In this, the 3 angles of any cost are analyzed. First angle is cost. That means what is the effect on profit if cost changes. Next point is volume. What is the effect of profit of change in volume? And then finally profit. What is the overall effect on profit of all these factors is called as cost, volume, profit analysis. So basically, last point, basically it's an analysis of impact on profit of 2 factors, cost as well as price. Sorry, cost as well as volume. Volume means quantity. Discuss marginal cost, we have already discussed. What is the difference between fixed cost and variable cost? एकदम basic वाला question है. Fixed cost is the cost which is always fixed in total, while variable cost is the cost which is same in same per unit. Changes, point number 2, fixed cost changes per unit. That means more are the units produced, fixed cost per unit will come down and vice versa. While variable cost will change in total. For example, if the production is doubled, then variable cost will also be doubled. Relationship to activity, fixed cost is constant at any production level. Variable cost changes proportionately with the production level. Relevant activity range, fixed cost is always change in any range of activity. Variable cost is per unit same for any level of activity. Relevant period, fixed cost is applicable to a particular product, so it is called as period cost, while variable cost is applicable to the level of production, so it is called as the product cost. Controllability, fixed cost cannot be controlled because at any level of production I have to pay the same rent amount. Variable cost can be controlled, so if someone reduces the production, then the variable cost will also come down. Okay, next question is how to determine the marginal or variable cost. Calculation of variable cost is basically done by 2 methods. First, by adding the variable cost to each other, like direct material, direct wages, direct expenses, whichever is variable part, and you can get this, or you can come through the reverse journey. If you reduce from sales, if you reduce the profit and fixed cost element, you will get the variable cost. Now the next point is what is absorption costing versus marginal cost. ये बहुत favorite topic है उनका. Absorption costing and marginal costing are both the systems for calculation of total cost. Marginal cost is based on the marginal costing system is based on the marginal cost, that is the variable cost. Thus, in marginal costing, only the variable cost is considered while making all the decisions as well as valuation, and therefore the stock, that is closing stock, consider only variable cost when it comes to the marginal costing system. In case of absorption, point number 5, in case of absorption costing system, it absorbs the total cost. Thus, it consider variable cost as well as fixed cost. Point number 7, thus, in case of absorption costing system, the closing stock will include the variable cost as well as fixed cost, and that is why, point number 8, that is why the closing stock as per absorption costing system is always more than marginal costing system. And point number 9, thus the reconciliation is required when we are following these two systems separately. इतना सिंपल है. ये यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ बहुत कॉम्प्लिकेटेड हो सकता है, अभी क्या करें, वो तो लैंग्वेज उसी की भाषा में लिखना पड़ता है. बट आप ये बस वीडियो है ना आंखें बंद करके फॉलो करो, 5 पॉइंट दिमाग में फिट करो, पॉज कर दो, एक आंसर सुनने के बाद ओके ये 5 पॉइंट फिट हो गए, आगे बढ़ो, फिर से फुल स्पीड में सुनो, पॉज करो, ये 5 पॉइंट फिट हो गए, आगे बढ़ो, बस इससे ज्यादा कुछ मत करो. Discuss the important terms relating to the marginal costing. Marginal cost equation, marginal cost as we know is a variable cost. उससे related कुछ important points जो हमने देखे वो है फॉर एग्जाम्पल कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन, सेल्स माइनस वेरिएबल कॉस्ट इज कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन, या और उसमें से फिक्स कॉस्ट जाएगी तो आता है प्रॉफिट. तो कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन के लिए दो फॉर्मूले हो गए, सेल्स माइनस वेरिएबल कॉस्ट एज वेल एज फिक्स कॉस्ट प्लस प्रॉफिट. थैंक यू, रख दीजिए. यस यस ये भी ले लीजिए. थैंक यू. देन कम्स पीवीआर, प्रॉफिट वॉल्यूम रेशियो. क्या होता है ये प्रॉफिट वॉल्यूम रेशियो? बेसिकली इसका नाम अलग होना चाहिए था. मैं मानता हूं कि इसका नाम होना चाहिए था कंट्रीब्यूशन वॉल्यूम रेशियो, क्योंकि इसका फॉर्मूला क्या है, कंट्रीब्यूशन अपॉन सेल्स इनटू 100. ये प्रॉफिट वर्ड कंफ्यूजिंग है, लेकिन अभी जिन्होंने रख दिया. तो प्रॉफिट वॉल्यूम रेशियो इज अ रेशियो बिटवीन सेल्स एंड कंट्रीब्यूशन. इट इंडिकेट्स which product gives better contribution per 1 rupee of sales. So higher is PVR, higher should be the better is the situation. Break even point. Break even point is the point which is no loss no profit point, at which the organization will not earn any profit but will not have any loss also. Break even point can be calculated in terms of units as well as in terms of rupees also. The formula for break even point in units is fixed cost upon contribution per unit, while for rupees it is fixed cost upon PVR. So it gives us the point at which the organization is at par, no loss no profit point. ब्रेक इवन चार्ट पे आएंगे, पहले और कोई कंसेप्ट होगी तो उसमें एक कंसेप्ट है वो बता देता हूँ, मार्जिन ऑफ सेफ्टी. It is a difference between actual sales and BEP sales. For example, if the break even point sales were 5 lakh but the organization is actually selling goods worth rupees 7 lakh, then the break even point, sorry, the margin of safety will be rupees 2 lakh, actual sales minus BEP sales. Then comes BEP chart, next short note. Point number 1, BEP chart. First point should be the break even point is the point at which there is no loss, no profit. The formula for BEP in units जो बताया वो लिख दो, rupees भी लिख दो. Point number 2, break even chart is the diagram showing the break even point as well as loss region, profit region and angle of incidence also. Point number 3, for this to draw a break even chart we should follow the following step. First, find out break even point in units. Second, prepare a table showing the variable cost, fixed cost, total cost, sales and profit, considering some units below BEP and some units above BEP. Once that chart is ready, point number 3, draw the chart on the graph and we will get this. Here, this 5000 is a break even point. This is loss region because if you are producing below BEP then it's a loss, and this is profit region. And the angle between at BEP, whatever angle comes between the sales amount and the total cost amount is called as angle of incidence. More is the angle of incidence, more will be the profit, for which either sales should be increased or cost should be reduced. So in this way, the chart is called as break even chart, which helps the organization, last point, which helps the organization to decide at which level it should work and up to or below which level it should not go, called as BEP. Khatam. ये हो गया आपका break even chart. Margin of safety we have already discussed. Angle of incidence we have already discussed. Okay, so this was all about the concepts related with marginal costing. Explain the advantages and disadvantages of marginal costing. Advantages में सबसे पहला, decision making becomes very easy because the decisions are always based on the marginal cost. Point number 2, variety of decisions can be taken like make or buy, purchase the product or not, start a new product or not. Variety of decisions can be taken. Next advantage, it is very easy to calculate and easy to take the decision. Next advantage, it gives a proper decision well in time, so delay can be avoided. Limitations may be like it's very difficult to make the analysis of fixed and variable cost in some situations. जनरली मालूम होता है, अभी कुछ लिमिटेशन लिखने पड़ेंगे ना. Point number 2, when the data is incorrect then obviously the results will be incorrect. Point number 3, ignoring fixed cost can be very dangerous because even if the contribution is positive, maybe sometimes fixed cost is so high that the organization may go in loss. So for decision making, even if marginal costing is correct, but for ultimate profitability, we have to consider the fixed cost also. Next point, limitation, the inflation effect is not considered. That may change the final answer also. So in this way, these are all advantages and limitations of marginal costing. Was it okay for you? अगर आपको ये अच्छा लग रहा है तो जरा लाइक वाला बटन दबा दो, और अगर आप ये बाद में देख रहे हो फिर भी इस वीडियो का लाइक वाला बटन आप दबा सकते हो. आप हमें सब्सक्राइब कर सकते हो. मैं ऐसे अच्छे अच्छे वीडियोस आपके लिए लाता रहूंगा. तो मुझे हेल्प करो कि आपको क्या चाहिए. अगर आप कमेंट बॉक्स में डालते हो कि सर इस चीज का वीडियो चाहिए, तो डेफिनेटली वी कैन गो फॉर इट. ओके, कमिंग एंड आई रिपीट, जो लोग लेट ज्वाइन है उनको बता दूं कि ये जो नोट्स है इसका डिस्क्रिप्शन में मैंने लिंक भेज दिया है, उस पर क्लिक कीजिए और डाउनलोड कर लीजिए. ठीक है. और अगर आपको कांटेक्ट करना है तो मैं एक बार फिर से बता दूं, 8237218218 इज अवर सेंट्रलाइज्ड नंबर. एक्चुअली वो हेडर फुटर में डाल देता तो आसान होता, लेकिन ठीक है, अभी थोड़ा सा रह गया मेरी तरफ से. नेक्स्ट चैप्टर कम्स जॉइंट प्रोडक्ट एंड बाय प्रोडक्ट. शॉर्ट नोट आ सकती है, डिफाइन जॉइंट प्रोडक्ट एंड बाय प्रोडक्ट. तो उसका आंसर क्या हो सकता है? एक सेकंड, लाइव ठीक से चल रहा है ना, देख लेता हूँ, क्योंकि ऐसा ना हो कि मैं इतने एफर्ट्स ले रहा हूँ और अब तक वो वीडियो नहीं आया ठीक से. यस, परफेक्ट. सो जॉइंट प्रोडक्ट एंड बाय प्रोडक्ट पे अगर शॉर्ट नोट आती है या डिस्टिंग्विश आता है, दोनों कंबाइन बता देता हूँ. पॉइंट नंबर 1, many times it happens that in a particular process the multiple products emerges and they may be called as joint products or byproduct. Point number 2, if the products which are or common products coming from the same processes are having considerable selling value then and existence, then they are called as joint products. While if some product, point number 3, if some products emerges which can be sold as scrap and don't have that much selling value, then they are called as byproducts. Point number 3, the joint cost, that is common cost of any production is, or you can give an example also. For example, from the process of sugar, we get the joint products like sugar and, sorry, from the processing of sugar cane, we get the joint products like sugar and jaggery, shakkar or good. And there is one byproduct also called as molasses, मतलब वो जो आता है कचरा. If molasses are having just a scrap value, then it will be called as byproduct. But if molasses can be sold at a considerable value, it can be treated as joint product also. Point number 4, the total joint cost of production is divided among all the joint products, but not on the byproducts. Point number 5, in this situation, the sales value of byproduct is reduced from the joint cost, and then the joint cost is distributed. For example, if the joint cost was 2,10,000, and the sales value of a byproduct was 10,000, then the net cost 2,10,000 minus 10,000, that is 2 lakh, will be distributed among joint products. Next, second last point, there are 6 different methods for distribution of joint cost among joint products, like physical units method, split off method, NRV method, market sales method, contribution margin method, and gross profit margin percentage method. And final conclusion, in this way, joint product or the above techniques help us to divide the joint cost among joint products properly. हर एक थ्योरी का अगर आंसर आता है ना 4-5 मार्क के, तो प्रॉपर कंक्लूजन दो, इससे आपकी मैच्योरिटी दिखती है चेक करने वाले को. बोलता है ठीक है, ये रेडी है, इसको फाइनल में भेजने में कोई टेंशन नहीं है. तो हमने डिस्कस कर लिया. डिस्टिंक्शन बिटवीन जॉइंट प्रोडक्ट बाय प्रोडक्ट वी हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस. जैसा मैंने कहा कि आपका ऑलरेडी वो पॉइंट उसमें मैंने कवर कर लिया. अगर आपको चाहिए तो आप ऐसा डिस्टिंग्विश फॉर्मेट में लिख सकते हो. जॉइंट प्रोडक्ट वाज एक्सपेक्टेड, बाय प्रोडक्ट कम्स फ्रॉम अनएक्सपेक्टेडली फ्रॉम द प्रोसेस. जॉइंट प्रोडक्ट हैज अ और सेलेबल वैल्यू, जॉइंट प्रोडक्ट के लिए कंसिडरेबल सेल्स वैल्यू, सोल्ड एट स्क्रैप. देन अकाउंटिंग ट्रीट और डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ जॉइंट कॉस्ट. जॉइंट कॉस्ट इज बेयर बाय ऑल जॉइंट प्रोडक्ट, बाय प्रोडक्ट नेवर बेयर द जॉइंट कॉस्ट. Treatment of sales value. Sales value is used for distribution of joint cost. In case of byproduct, the sales value is reduced from the joint cost and net joint cost is distributed among joint products. खत्म. Okay, distinguish भी हो गया. Problems क्या होते हैं joint product और byproduct के management में? Simple है, how to define something is a joint product and one product is a byproduct. Second, which method is to be used exactly to distribute the cost? Then will the managers accept the cost? Because sometimes it happens कि किसी product की unit ज़्यादा है, sorry, Sometimes it happens that the units of particular product are very high, but its sales value is very low. In that case, physical units method is of no use. Thus, there is always a conflict between which methods, about which method is to be used among all the product managers. So these are the problems. Okay, discuss the concept waste, scrap, defective, spoilage and their treatment. तो चलो देख लेते हैं waste. Waste is defined in terminology as discarded substance having no value. So waste represent the portion of raw material lost in the process having no recoverable value. Waste may be visible, but for example, remnants of basis raw material, or invisible, for example, disappearance of basic raw material, spoke, etc. So waste is something which has no or very low selling price, so it cannot be used further. You have to just absorb its cost by good units. Waste का कुछ नहीं हो सकता. So normal waste is absorbed by good units. Abnormal waste हुआ तो costing P&L. देखिए हमेशा याद रखिए, normal is always absorbed by good units and abnormal always goes to costing P&L. इतना simple है. Scrap. The terminology defines scrap as a discarded material which has some recoverable value, which is usually either disposed of without further treatment or reintroduced in the production process in place of raw material. या तो उसको बेच दो एज अ स्क्रैप, या थोड़ा सा रिपेयर करके फिर से एज अ रॉ मटेरियल उसको इंट्रोड्यूस करो. फॉर एग्जांपल, आपने जेरोक्स मतलब फोटोकॉपी मशीन में एक पेपर डाला, वो थोड़ा सा खराब होके बाहर आया, उस पर नहीं आया, कुछ भी प्रिंट नहीं हुआ, या तो आप उसको सीधा करके फिर से यूज करोगे या फिर फेंक दोगे, आइदर वेज. सो अगर निग्लिजिबल है तो छोड़ दो, अगर नॉर्मल है तो गुड यूनिट्स एब्जॉर्ब करेंगे, एबनॉर्मल होगा तो कॉस्टिंग P&L में डाल दो. Defective. Now defective is something which is actually close to the finished goods but which has no considerable sales value, can be sold as defective only. So when products are produced are not up to the standard and they do not meet the dimensional specification, they are known as defective. Defective work may result of various causes such as substandard material, bad workmanship, incomplete supervision, etc. तो अकाउंटिंग क्या होता है? अकाउंटिंग फॉर डिफेक्टिव इज कंसर्न विद द अकाउंटिंग फॉर रीवर्क कॉस्ट. उसको रिपेयरिंग के लिए कितना खर्चा आने वाला है. व्हेन द डिफेक्टिव आर यूजुअल फॉर द प्रोडक्ट्स एंड इज नॉट पेइंग टू ट्राई टू आइडेंटिफाई द जॉब वाइज, द फॉलोइंग मेथड्स आर यूज्ड. ट्रीटमेंट बाय निग्लेक्ट, द लॉस ऑफ एब्जॉर्ब बाय गुड यूनिट्स. नहीं, इसको कोई वैल्यू नहीं है, उसकी कॉस्ट बाकी यूनिट्स उठा लेंगे. चार्ज टू जनरल ओवरहेड अगर कंसिडरेबल है तो. चार्ज टू प्रोडक्शन डिपार्टमेंटल ओवरहेड अगर उसी डिपार्टमेंट से रिलेटेड तो उसके फैक्ट्री ओवरहेड में ऐड करो. चार्ज टू P&L एज वी हैव डिस्कस्ड अगर एबनॉर्मल होगा. स्पॉइलेज, क्या क्या देखा हमने? वेस्ट, स्क्रैप, डिफेक्टिव एंड स्पॉइलेज. Spoilage results when the materials are damaged in manufacturing operation in such a way that they cannot be rectified economically. उसको बहुत खर्चा हो जाएगा रिपेयर करने को, and hence taken out of the process to be disposed of in some manner without further processing. The main difference between defective and spoiled work is spoiled material cannot be repaired. अब सोचिए कि अगर एक प्रोडक्शन चल रहा है, उसमें कुछ डिफेक्टिव है, बल्ब जो है ना वो चालू नहीं हो रहा है, थोड़ा काम करके हो जाएगा, लेकिन सेकंड वाला बल्ब जो उसकी कांची फूट गई, नाउ यू कैनॉट रिकवर, और या उसमें से कुछ ऐसा स्मेल आ रहा है कि ये भाई डेंजरस हो सकता है, तो इन दैट केस इट इज स्पॉइलेज. सो यू आर नॉट सपोज टू मेक एनी एक्सपेंडिचर टू रीवर्क और टू मेक इट यूजेबल, बट समटाइम्स यू हैव टू पे द कॉस्ट टू डिस्पोज इट ऑफ. आपको उसको डिस्पोज करने का खर्चा भी देना पड़ सकता है. ओके, देन अकाउंटिंग फॉर जॉइंट एंड बाय प्रोडक्ट, वी हैव ऑलरेडी सीन दिस कि ये कैसे डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होता है, तो इसको आगे चलते हैं. तो दिस वाज ऑल अबाउट द जॉइंट एंड बाय प्रोडक्ट्स. तो आई होप कि आपको ये टॉपिक भी अच्छा लगा होगा. थोड़ा सा टाइम के हिसाब से मैं फास्ट जा रहा हूँ. ओके, तो अभी तक हमने 22 शॉर्ट नोट्स कवर कर ली है एंड 43 पेजेस इसके हो चुके हैं. आपको चाहिए तो डिटेल में ये नोट्स आप पढ़ सकते हो. इसी वीडियो के नीचे डिस्क्रिप्शन में लिंक है, वहां से आपको उठा लो. ठीक है. नाउ नेक्स्ट कम्स द कंसेप्ट बजट एंड बजटरी कंट्रोल. चैप्टर का नाम है बजटरी कंट्रोल. सो बेसिकली बजट इज अ स्टेटमेंट विच इज प्रिपेयर्ड एट द बिगिनिंग ऑफ द ईयर एंड इट बिकम्स द गाइडलाइन फॉर फर्दर वर्क ड्यूरिंग द ईयर. पॉइंट नंबर 2, every department of the organization gets its particular budget which becomes guideline and standard for that department. Point number 3, the budgets are of different types like flexible budget, master budget, cash budget, etc. Point number 3, the flexible budget is the budget which is prepared for different levels of production, while master budget is a combination of variety of functional budget, like combination of sales budget, production budget, material consumption budget, material purchase budget, labor budget, etc. And cash budget is the budget which gives us the prediction about inflow and outflow of cash in the coming period. Okay, so that was a short note for budgetary control. Then what are the steps involved in budgetary control? First comes establishment of budget. We have to prepare the budget. Before that even we have to find out for which we need to prepare the budget. कौन से activity के लिए, कौन से function के लिए. Measurement of actual performance at the end of the year. Then comparison of actual performance with budgeted and analyzing the causes, जिसको हम standard costing and variance analysis कहते हैं. ऑब्जेक्टिव्स क्या होते हैं हमारे बजटरी कंट्रोल के? सिंपल है, प्लानिंग अच्छा होना चाहिए, बिकॉज बजट बिकम्स अ गाइडलाइन फॉर एवरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, एवरी डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. कोऑर्डिनेशन, इफ एवरीवन फॉलोज पर्टिकुलर बजट देन द टोटल वर्क वर्क्स इन अ प्रॉपर रिदम, because ultimately each budget is a sub part of master budget. And control at the end of the year, when the actual data, or may not be year, maybe month also, quarter also, when the actual data is compared with the budget, we can find out the responsibility of each department. It gives very good help for controlling the organization. That's why the name of the topic is budgetary control, controlling by preparing the budgets. Explain the preparations needed for applying the budgetary control system in the organization. अगर आप एक न्यू ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में ज्वाइन हो रहे हो तो आपको क्या लगता है कि क्या क्या स्टेप्स लेनी पड़ेगी? फर्स्ट, बजट सेंटर. फाइंड आउट फॉर विच पार्ट यू हैव टू प्रिपेयर द बजट. लाइक प्रोडक्शन के लिए बजट होगा, प्रोडक्शन बजट, सेल्स बजट, मटेरियल बजट एंड ऑल दैट. Prepare the organization chart, how it is connected with each other. The best example is, if I ask the production manager how many units will you, or if I ask material manager how many kgs will you purchase, he will say, sir please ask material consumption manager. Okay, material consumption manager, he said no sir, please ask production manager, because jitna zyada production itna material consumption. Production manager says no sir, please ask sales manager, because sales कितना है उसमें production करूंगा. So everything is linked. So the second steps comes organization. Prepare the organization chart. Accordingly you have to prepare the budget. Next is budget committee. Form a budget committee which will take care of each part of budget, right from its preparation up to its comparison with, that is preparation, implementation and comparison with actuals. Prepare a budget manual. Budget manual, manual मतलब book. जब हम एक लैपटॉप लेते हैं, मोबाइल लेते हैं, तो उसमें एक बुकलेट आता है, देखो मैनुअल. सो बजट मैनुअल is a book which gives a guideline about each and every factor of the budget. It is handed over to the manager of particular department. Budget period, it's a time span for which the budget is prepared. Like long period is of 10 to 20 years. Fiscal period is of one fiscal, that is financial year. Short period may be weekly, monthly, quarterly budget. So when you follow all these activities, a proper budgetary control system will be there. Level of activity, for which level of activity we are preparing the budget. What is our target for this year? How out of that year, how much is the target for this quarter, month, etc. Then principal budget factor. Identify the principal. All these are points of short note. Identify the point or limiting factor which is the main part of your budget. For example, whatever budget we are preparing, if the raw material is not available to that extent, then we have to prepare the budget focusing on the available raw material kg. That's why raw material becomes a principal budget factor, that is key factor or limiting factor. So in this way, if you follow all these 7 factors, you can implement a good budgetary control system in your organization. So this was a short note, requirements of budgetary control. I hope you're enjoying this part also. Next question comes, discuss the concept functional budget. Functional budget is a system where the budgets are prepared not by department, not by product, but for particular function. That means particular activity of the organization. For example, let's take an example of fan manufacturing company. Then there can be the functions like production, sales, material consumption, material purchase, labor, etc. So for each function, a different budget is prepared. This system is called as the functional budget system. Then examples can be given. For example, sales budget will include the quantities to be sold as well as its price. Production budget will include quantity to be produced depending on the sales units, and like this examples can be given. ठीक है, तो ये सारे उसी के सब पार्ट्स हो सकते हैं। इफ यू वांट, आई रिपीट, डाउनलोड कर लो, डिस्क्रिप्शन में है इसका लिंक और आप वो पढ़ सकते हो। ठीक है, ऐसा मैंने तो बहुत डिटेल में ये लिखा हुआ है, लेकिन आपको इतना डिटेल में जाने की जरूरत नहीं है। डिस्कस द कंसेप्ट मास्टर बजट। पॉइंट नंबर 1, 4 to 5 points. Master budget is a combination of variety of functional budget of the organization. It includes all the budgets which are depending on each other. Point 2. Point 3, for example, the material purchase budget depends on material consumption, while consumption budget depends on production, while production budget depends on sales. So all these are interconnected budgets. The budget is the combination, thus every department has to prepare the budget in connection with each other. Then the summary is submitted to the upper authority called as master budget. At the end of the year, the master budget is compared with the actual budget and the analysis starts called as variance analysis. Next concept एकदम अलग है, लेकिन ये बहुत बार पूछी जा चुकी है, ZBB, that is zero based budgeting. हम कहते हैं ना, देखो कभी कभी झगड़ा हो जाता है किसी का, तो हम क्या कहते हैं, सब भूल जाओ, मिट्टी डालो, फिर से शुरू करते हैं. That is called as zero based budgeting. So point number 1, budgetary control is the activity which is done at the beginning of the year in which different budgets are prepared. Point number 2, generally if there is no change, no big change in the organization or in the market, then the budgets are prepared using the base of earlier years actually. But sometimes the organization or the market is so dynamic मतलब change होने वाला, so dynamic that the last year's budget becomes useless to prepare a new budget, and thus a new budget is prepared without using any base, which system is called as zero base budgeting. Point number 4, under this system, all the earlier budgets are discarded and the analysis is made in detail of each activity again, each function again, so that the fresh budget can be prepared. Point number 5, its main advantage is that any area will not be neglected, or any new department, new product, new branch will get the justifiable chance to get the budget. But its limitation, point number 6, its limitation is that it is time consuming and cost consuming, and if there is a stability, then it is not needed to be implemented. So that is called as ZBB. Steps देख लो एक बार. There are 3 steps involved in ZBB. Identifying the decision units, means for which the budget is required, budget factor. Evaluating and ranking all the decision packages, developing the decision packages. So which is in priority? पैसे तो सभी को चाहिए. Which decision package is in priority, and make the allocation of resources accordingly. So this is all about ZBB, zero base budgeting. So this was all about the chapter budgetary control. Till now we have covered 29 short notes and 60 pages in total. सर आप कितने पेजेस, कितने शॉर्ट नोट्स हमें देने वाले हो? राउंड अबाउट आई गेस 50 to 60 और 150 पेजेस तक हम जाएंगे, तो हमारा ऑलमोस्ट 1/3 से ज्यादा काम हो चुका है. मैं थोड़ा पानी पी लूं और आगे बढ़ते हैं. आई रिपीट, अगर आप ये वीडियो लेट ज्वाइन हुए हो तो मैं फिर से बता दूं, हर एक चैप्टर के बाद मैं बता रहा हूं कि ये जो नोट्स है डिटेल वाली, ये मैंने आपके डिस्क्रिप्शन, मतलब इस वीडियो के डिस्क्रिप्शन में डाल दी है, आप वहां से डाउनलोड कर सकते हो. और अगर आप देख रहे हो अभी ये वीडियो तो चेक कर लो डाउनलोड हो रहा है कि नहीं, मुझे बता दो यहाँ पे. सेकेंड थिंग, अगर आपको कोई भी हेल्प चाहिए तो वी आर ऑलवेज देयर टू हेल्प यू आउट. हमारा नंबर मैं आपको दे देता हूँ, 8237218218. आप व्हाट्सएप भी कर सकते हो इस नंबर पे, विल बी हैप्पी टू हेल्प यू. ओके, अब हम आते हैं मटेरियल चैप्टर. यहाँ पे हमने बहुत अच्छे अच्छे टॉपिक सीखे थे सर, लाइक EOQ सीखा था, स्टॉक लेवल सीखी थी, ABC एनालिसिस सीखा था, LIFO, FIFO, SAM स्टॉक वैल्यूएशन देखा था. तो इंटरेस्टिंग है, चलो देखते हैं. डिस्कस एग्जैक्ट नीड फॉर इफिशिएंट परचेसिंग ऑफ फॉर द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. क्यों जरूरत है मटेरियल पे इतना ध्यान देने की जरूरत क्या है? सो क्वेश्चन कैन बी, व्हाई द efficient purchasing system is needed for any organization. The answer is, first thing, for any again 6 to 7 points only. For any manufacturing company or entity, the raw material is the most important factor in the cost sheet. Any deviation in the raw material cost will directly affect the overall cost and profit also. Thus, this segment needs to be taken care properly. Among the raw material steps, the purchase of raw material becomes very important because many times the small deviation in the purchasing price will affect the overall cost. Thus, the purchase department carries very important responsibilities to decide the following factor. A, what to purchase. B, from where to purchase. C, when to purchase. D, at what price to be purchased. So, all these questions are to be answered by the purchasing department, and that is why the raw material purchase becomes a very important factor. So, it can be the centralized purchasing or it can be decentralized purchasing also. अभी इतना डिटेल नहीं लिखना है 5 marks के लिए. Next point, in case of centralized purchase, all the purchases are made at once, let's say in the head office, so that the bargaining power will be strong and material prices will be lower. But in case of decentralized, every segment, every branch is allowed to purchase its own material from the local area. The most advantageous point will be the traveling cost, transportation cost will be lower. And last point, while taking the decision of all above questions, we have to consider 3 types of costs. First, purchasing cost. Second, carrying cost, that means storage cost, and ordering cost, that is the transportation cost. ये देखिए, when to purchase, why, what to purchase, अब आ गया, राइट? इतना डिटेल में आपको जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. देखो कितना बड़ा ये सब आंसर दिया हुआ है, सो यू डोंट नीड टू गो इन डिटेल फॉर दिस. नोट्स में कुछ एमसीक्यूज भी दिए, वो भी आप देख सकते हो. ओके, व्हाट इज द रोल ऑफ स्टोर कीपर रिलेटिंग टू द स्टोरेज ऑफ रॉ मटेरियल? सिंपल है, कॉमन सेंस वाला पॉइंट है. स्टोर कीपर प्लेज एन इंपॉर्टेंट रोल because the most important material is stored in the godown. Point number 2, his basic responsibility is to make sure that the production is running properly. That means the raw material is properly available in the godown. He should, point number 3, he should make sure that there should not be shortage of raw material, as well as there should not be excessive raw material stored. If there is shortage of raw material, there is a risk of loss of production process, and if there is the extra raw material maintained, then the wastages will be there, so he has to take care of it. Its further work include keeping proper records of all the goods. For example, if there is a bin card, only quantities to be recorded, but if it is stores ledger, generally stores ledger is not prepared by storekeeper, it is prepared by accountant. So that points you can ignore that point. So these are all the responsibilities. He should give the report of any defective material. If there is any wastage, then that should be taken care of and all that. So general जो किसी भी storekeeper की responsibilities होती है, you can write down. Okay, what are different levels of stock to be maintained by the storekeeper? First comes reorder level. That means the level at which the next order is to be given. Formula आपको मालूम है, maximum into maximum. Maximum usage multiplied by maximum lead time. Second comes reorder quantity. It is the quantity which is to be ordered at a time, and generally it is EOQ. The formula is under root 2AO upon C. Next comes maximum level. It is the level beyond which the raw material is never stored in the godown. The formula, as you know, is ROL plus ROQ minus minimum into minimum usage into minimum lead time. Next comes minimum level. It is the level below which the stock is never maintained. Formula, as you know, ROL minus दोनों average usage into average lead time. Average level is general average of all the available stock, that is maximum level plus minimum level by 2. And last is danger level. It is the least possible stock to be maintained, because at any time production will stop. The formula is average usage into emergency lead time. खत्म. इससे ज़्यादा क्या लिखना है? चाहिए तो डिटेल में आप देख लो. Next short note is on EOQ. Again, शुरुआत वैसे ही करेंगे. Raw material plays an important role for every production or manufacturing activity. Any difference, any small deviation in the raw material cost will affect the total cost and profit. Thus, the most important question arises, how much quantity is to be purchased at a time by the organization? Point number 4, because if the huge quantity is purchased, then the ordering cost may come down, but carrying cost, that is storage cost, will increase. Point number 5, and if the small order is given, then carriage cost will be reduced, but ordering cost will be increased. Point number 6, Thus, we have to find out an ideal quantity to be purchased at a time called as EOQ. Point number 7, formula of EOQ is under root 2AO upon C, in which A is annual consumption, O is ordering cost and C is carrying cost. खत्म. आपको चाहिए तो एक आध एग्जांपल दे दो. फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ एनुअल कंजम्पशन इज 60,000, ऑर्डरिंग कॉस्ट 1000, कैरिंग कॉस्ट 50 रुपीज. फॉर्मूला डालो, जो भी आंसर आएगा लिख दो. लेट्स एज्यूम 5000 आया है, फॉर्मूला आंसर लिख दो और कमेंट लिख दो. Thus, organization should purchase exactly 5000 units at a time, nothing less or more. खत्म. Perfect marks, tension free. Okay, what is material receipts and its related issues? Material receipts क्या होता है? It is actual receipt of raw material by the stores, and the general issues are maybe the goods are defective, maybe the expected quantity is not received, or maybe the packing was not correct. So that is the issue. The documents related with is bin card. Bin card is a document which is maintained by the storekeeper and kept in the bins. Bins matlab boxes, kappa, cupboard. It only records the quantity and not the price. So that is to be prepared by stores requisition note. Sorry, ये अगला आ गया. Material issue of production process बताइए. Firstly, कैसा होता है? Simple common sense लगाओ ना. What is the process of issue of material for production? First, production department finds out the raw material is required, so it will prepare the stores requisition note. इतना माल मुझे चाहिए. Format आप यहाँ पे देख सकते हो. Then comes the stores requisition note is then analyzed and it is sent to the stores. Stores will check. Point number 3. Stores will check how much quantity is available and how much is to be purchased. And for purchasing, the purchase requisition note is sent to the purchase department. Accordingly, purchase department will book an order. Then the goods will be received. Point number 5, 6 जो भी है. And when the goods are received, goods received note is generated. Then it comes to the godown, in which the bin card is maintained, the document, and all the quantities are recorded. And finally, the required quantity is given to the production department. 7 to 8 points, पूरी stores की process हो गई. Next comes what is shop credit and what is its use. So कभी कभी क्या हो जाता है कि आपको कुछ मटेरियल अचानक से लगता है या कुछ रिटर्न करना पड़ता है. Sometimes stores may be issued in excess of the needs for a particular job or work order to facilitate the convenient handling. For instance, sheet iron and steel bar may be difficult to cut off in the stores to the exact measurement at the time and more convenient for operation. कभी कभी शीट आपको लग रही है let's say 5 फीट की, लेकिन हमारे पास 8 फीट की अवेलेबल है, तो आप टोटल लेके जाओ और बाद में 3 फीट हमें वापस भेज दो. So in that case, the document is created called as stores debit or shop credit note. मतलब stores को जब हम माल वापस देते हैं तो stores debit and हम बनाएंगे प्रोडक्शन वाले वो shop credit the giver note बनाएंगे. Format बाद में देख लेना. What are the steps in material transfer? Simple है. Sometimes the material of one site or one production department is needed by the other department. In that case, the internal transfer of material is done. Here, material transfer note is prepared, which is prepared by the sending department and signed and authorized by the receiving department. Khatam. Next, what is the difference between bin cards and stores ledger? Bin cards and stores ledger में क्या फर्क है? So, bin card is a document which is kept in the bins in the godown. The stores ledger is a document which is kept in the accounts department. Point number 2, bin card is prepared and maintained by the storekeeper. Stores ledger is prepared and maintained by the accountant. Point number 3, bin card records only the quantity of material. Stores ledger records only the quantity as well as price and total cost of the material. The quantity is recorded in the bin cards immediately when it is received or sent. Stores ledger records quantity and amount only when the invoices are received. Thus, sometimes there is a difference between stock also. समझ में आया? ओके, तो जो लॉसेस हो जाते हैं स्टोर्स लॉसेस, वो उसका क्या है? इस पे शॉर्ट नोट आ सकती है. गिव द शॉर्ट नोट ऑन मटेरियल लॉस. यस, थैंक यू. चलो आपको सिखाते चाय पी लेता हूँ. So material loss can be divided in two parts. First is unavoidable loss. It is expected and normal loss like evaporation. आप जब पेट्रोल भरते हो तो थोड़ा सा पेट्रोल उड़ जाता है, So point number 1, the material losses are generally expected in the godown. There are variety of losses. Point number 2, it is divided in two parts, unavoidable causes and avoidable losses or causes. Point number 3, unavoidable causes include the causes like evaporation of material or arising due to the small lots or units, or which is expected. And avoidable causes are something which are abnormal and which were unexpected, but next time it can be saved, like breakage of material, transportation losses, etc. Accounting treatment, if it is normal, then it is absorbed by good units. If it is abnormal, then it is transferred to costing P&L account. आपकी journal entry की format में costing P&L account debit to stores account. So this was all about the material costing. I hope कि आप यहाँ तक comfortable हो. हमने 41 short notes अभी तक discuss कर ली है. I repeat, अगर आप late join हुए हो तो इसके नीचे description में हमारी notes हैं, वो download कर लीजिए. कुछ हेल्प चाहिए तो व्हाट्सअप कीजिए. नंबर फिर से एक बार दे रहा हूं मैं, 8237218218. और 90 पेजेस तक हम ऑलरेडी आ चुके हैं. ओके, उसके बाद आता है लेबर कॉस्ट. अब ये लेबर कॉस्ट क्या है, यू नो इट वेरी वेल, कि हम जो वर्कर्स को पेमेंट करते हैं, दैट इज लेबर कॉस्ट. एक मिनट, मैं चाय खत्म ही कर लेता हूं. तब तक अगर आप ये वीडियो देख रहे हो, आपको अच्छा लगा है तो कमेंट्स में डालिए, और कुछ अगर चाहिए तो वो भी कमेंट्स में डालिए. मैं चाय पी लेता हूं. तो चलिए, लेबर कॉस्ट. लेबर कॉस्ट पे अगर शॉर्ट नोट आती है तो आप लिखोगे 5 to 6 पॉइंट्स अगेन. इट इज एन इंपॉर्टेंट कॉस्ट फॉर प्रोडक्शन, मतलब मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एज वेल एज फॉर सर्विस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. द लेबर कॉस्ट इज एक्चुअली द अमाउंट पेड टू अवर एम्प्लॉयज. Labor cost is divided in two parts. Point number 3, direct labor as well as indirect labor. Point number 4, direct labor cost is the cost which is directly associated with the main activity of the business. For example, a payment made or amount paid to the direct workers who are involved in production activity is called as direct cost. Next point, the direct cost is added in the first heading of cost sheet, that is called as the direct expenditure, in which direct material, direct wages and direct expenses are recorded. Total is called as the prime cost. Next point, the indirect labor cost is indirect labor cost is the amount paid to those who are important for our main activity, but they are those who are in supporting role. For example, accountant salary, supervisor salary, salesman salary. Point number 5, the indirect expenses are recorded under the under the heading of different overheads. Point number 6, for example, supervisor salary comes under factory overheads, while accountant salary goes under office overhead, and salesman salary is recorded under the selling and distribution overheads. So in this way, the direct and indirect labor cost are the main part of any cost sheet. Clear? नेक्स्ट कम्स व्हाट इज रिक्रूटमेंट. अब अगेन ये एक जनरल पॉइंट हो गया, ऐसा कोई साइंटिफिक तो उसका आंसर है नहीं. 5-6 पॉइंट्स लिखता है. रिक्रूटमेंट मीन्स अपॉइंटमेंट ऑफ न्यू पर्सन्स इन द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. रिक्रूटमेंट is generally divided in two parts, internal recruitment and external recruitment. In case of internal recruitment, whenever there is a vacancy, the information is posted in the intranet. Intranet मतलब जो organization के अंदर होता है, and then the candidates can be selected, those who are already working with us or maybe based on their recommendation. Sometimes the promotions are directly given instead of informing to everyone. That is also internal recruitment. But sometimes we have to hire the person from external world, then it is called as external recruitment. It can be directly done by the organization, or sometimes the agencies are hired for it, for which the commission is paid to them. बस और क्या, टाइम पास ही है. अगला, व्हाट इज टाइम कीपिंग एंड टाइम बुकिंग भी इसमें डिस्कस कर लेते हैं, शायद नेक्स्ट पॉइंट वही आएगा. यस, चलो पहले टाइम कीपिंग कर लेते हैं। टाइम कीपिंग, point number 1, timekeeping is a system in which we record the time in and time out of every worker. Timekeeping help us to find out whether the worker is coming on time and going on proper time. Timekeeping also helps to calculate the wages paid to our worker. It also helps to find out the direct wages as well as some overtime wages, etc. paid. So these are all the advantages. Methods of timekeeping can be: first, manual method, that is attendance registered. Well, the method of timekeeping is divided in two parts: manual method and mechanical method. Point 5. Point 6, manual method include the manual system like recording the attendance in register, or maybe a disk method. What is disk method? वो disk लो और उसमें डाल दो, बहुत पुरानी मेथड है तो आपका अटेंडेंस लग जाएगा। यहाँ पे डिस्क लगाया हुआ है मेरे नंबर का, मैंने बॉक्स में डाल दिया, ऐसे मतलब ऑफ कोर्स उसमें बहुत सारी वैरायटीज है। एंड मैकेनिकल मेथड इंक्लूड द डायल टाइम रिकॉर्डर। ये भी एक बहुत पुराना सिस्टम है कि उसमें मैं कार्ड डालता था, सॉरी मैं शॉर्ट नोट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बताता हूँ। इन डायल टाइम रिकॉर्डर इट इज एक्चुअली समथिंग लाइक अ बिग क्लॉक and the current time is shown there, and the worker has to put the card in it, and then when it is pressed, then the time in is automatically printed. But again, it is somewhat outdated system. Card time recorders, nowadays the smart cards are available, so you have to just put the card in the machine and the attendance is done. Even nowadays the biometric system or retina scan system is there, so that the attendance system is done. So to conclude, timekeeping help us to find out time in and time out of the worker. But there is a limitation that during this time, whatever he is doing is not considered, which is covered by time booking. तो timekeeping सिर्फ आया गया बताता है, time booking आपको आगे लेके जाता है. So the next concept comes time booking. What is time booking? It is the system in which the worker books the time. That means if a worker was there for 6 hours in the organization, and if he has worked on different jobs within these 6 hours, then he has to give the details of the time spent on every job. So, just a second now. Yeah. So in this time or in this system, live ho raha hai na? Time booking, yeah. So in this system, the advantage of this system is that we can find out for how much time exactly the worker was working, or if there was any idle time. Idle time means wastage of time. So how it can be done? Daily time sheets. So a worker will carry the time sheet, and whenever he enter in any department, let's say for 2 hours, he will get it written from the department manager. It can be weekly time sheet. The sheets will be filled at the end of each week, and every manager will give the details. Job ticket or job cards. Whenever he goes on the job, he will write the time in and time out on the job. So that is possible. So time, these formats are given. Just go through the formats. So ultimately, there must be a reconciliation between timekeeping and time booking. For example, in time booking, a worker claims that today he worked for 8 hours, but timekeeping will immediately flash that he was there in the organization for 6 hours only. So the reconciliation will help us to identify whether that job is properly done or not. So this is the difference between timekeeping and time booking. I hope आपको ये समझ में आ रहा है. एक बार लाइव चेक कर लेता हूँ. Just a second, ना? Yes, it is there. Just a second. आगे बढ़ते हैं. Next comes work study. Work study means क्या ये जॉब सच में अच्छा चल रहा है, क्या इसमें कुछ और करने की जरूरत है. So work study can be defined as the method of investigation designed to provide better job or machine performance within a required operation. इसको उसमें बहुत सारे अलग अलग आते हैं, time and motion study etc. So method study is the point number 1. Method study is the study of a particular job or activity to identify whether it is happening properly or not. Point number 2, in this case, the systematic study of each and every step taken in the job, and then it is decided can something be eliminated or can something be done in a better way. So that is called as method study. It's a systematic procedure for analysis of the work with a view to reducing or eliminating the unnecessary work, arranging the remaining work at the best order possible and standardizing the usage of proper work method. जैसे आप देखते हो, आप कहीं बर्गर लेने को जाते हो, you can give this example also. In the burger shop, all the things are properly defined and the wastage of time is avoided. So it also includes time and motion study. Now what is time and motion study? It is the point number 4. In case of time and motion study, what we do is we find out the time needed for each activity and we try to reduce that time. Generally nowadays in the bank it is given how much time it will take to process your check, 15 minutes. So how can they claim 15 minutes? Because they have done a scientific analysis. So in case of time and motion study, the activities are analyzed in detail to find out is that time needed is proper or not. For example, earlier the call centers were having the landlines. So you can give this example, the landline. So the call operator has to put that phone down and again explore the information and pick the phone again. But nowadays due to the headphones, it is not needed. At the same time, both things can be done. This is called as time and motion study. How much time is needed for each activity? So steps, time study के लिए steps क्या है? Breaking the work or operation in the different parts, determining with the help of stopwatch or any other time recording equipment what is the time needed for each activity, giving due allowance for fatigue, interference, personal needs, etc. वो time तो रखना पड़ेगा भाई. Aggregating the standard time allowed for all the elements. For every activity, how much time is given. And in this way, the time and motion study works. So I repeat to conclude, the time study is the analysis or work study is the analysis of each job in detail to avoid the wastage of time and to do it in a efficient way. Right? That is called as study, time study or work study. Now what is job evaluation? Every job has its own characteristics. Therefore, depending upon the varying characteristics, the requirement of the for operators who will perform the job will vary. Job evaluation helps in determining the correct grade of labor for each operation. It is the ranking, grading, and weighing essential work characteristics of each job and job classes, ways to ascertain the labor worth for each job. What do you mean by this? हम कहते हैं ना भाई ये प्लेयर है ना बहुत अच्छा है. आईपीएल में देखिए जब ऑक्शन होता है तो क्या होता है, ये प्लेयर तो अच्छा है लेकिन आज मेरी टीम में ना अभी सारे बैट्समैन आ गए. आई नीड द बॉलर, आई नीड लेट्स से द ऑलराउंडर. तो मुझे शायद रोहित शर्मा को भी छोड़ देना पड़ेगा इन द ऑक्शन बिकॉज बैट्समैन मेरे पास अभी बहुत आ गए. अभी बॉलर नहीं होगा तो काम नहीं चलेगा, बैटिंग साइड ही हो रही है. सो यू हैव टू इवेल्युएट द जॉब प्रॉपरली एंड यू हैव टू फाइंड आउट whether that person is actually useful for this job or not. So either उसको हटाना पड़ेगा, दूसरे डिपार्टमेंट में डालो, or you'll have to give the training. So sir, short note तो बोलिए. Evaluation of a particular job is the detailed evaluation of each activity, but more than activity, the evaluation is of the quality required for that activity. At the end of this evaluation, the company or the organization may come to the conclusion that this worker is needed to be removed or may be sent to other department or maybe the training is needed. In short, more than job, it is the analysis of the worker or the employee who is performing that job. There are different methods like grading method. Here, the grades are given to the worker and then it is matched whether the worker is eligible for it or not. Ranking method, here the ranks are given. It is like the grade, but grade is general, ranking is more particular, and as per the ranking, they are distributed to different jobs. Or finally the point wise analysis, point value analysis. Here particular point is given, some key performance indicators are decided, that means आपके लिए criteria, and the points are given on that criteria so that we can come to know whether that person is perfect for that job or not. The points can be on the basis of education, skill, effort, responsibility, working conditions or complexity of duty. For example, एक आदमी बैंक वॉचमैन बनने के लिए एलिजिबल है लेकिन सोल्जर नहीं बन पाएगा. क्यों? क्योंकि उसका एज अभी 50 प्लस है, तो वहां पे वो फिट रहेगा लेकिन एज अ सोल्जर उसको एंट्री नहीं मिलेगी. लाइक दिस. सो दिस इज कॉल्ड एज जॉब इवेल्युएशन, बट आई रिपीट, मोर देन जॉब, इट इज द इवेल्युएशन ऑफ द एम्प्लॉय हु इज परफॉर्मिंग दैट जॉब. Next concept comes merit rating. Merit rating refers to a systematic analysis of merits of employees according to certain characters or to ascertain the worth of each employee for a suitable class for them. So it is again the next step to job evaluation. Now here the analysis is totally focused on the worker. Merit rating includes the detailed analysis of each particular employee to find out his or her strengths as well as weaknesses. Here the ranking is given to each quality and then the job is assigned to each worker depending on that ranking. There is a risk that if the worker is not getting good points, he or she may be removed from that job or maybe from organization also. So this is all about the merit rating. The main advantage of merit rating is that a perfect employee is assigned for a particular job and the inefficient employees are removed from the organization so that overall efficiency of the organization increases. So that was merit rating. So work study is about job. Job evaluation is also about job, but it is more about worker or employee, and merit rating is exactly for the employee. This is the difference between these three analysis. So in this way we have come to the end of that chapter labor costing, और अभी हमारे 48 शॉर्ट नोट्स अभी तक हो चुके हैं. और मैं फिर से एक बार बोल रहा हूँ, अगर आप लेट ज्वाइन हुए हो तो इस वीडियो के नीचे डिस्क्रिप्शन में आपको ये नोट्स मिल जाएगी डिटेल वाली, एज वेल एज इस कॉन्टैक्ट नंबर पे अगर आप व्हाट्सअप करोगे तो इफ यू नीड एनी हेल्प वी कैन हेल्प यू आउट. तो सर 48 शॉर्ट नोट्स ले लिया आपने, अब देखो हो गई. आप इतने इंथुजियास्टिक हो तो मुझे भी अच्छा लगता है. नाउ कमिंग टू द सर्विस कॉस्टिंग. व्हाट इज सर्विस कॉस्टिंग? बेसिकली सर्विस कॉस्टिंग is the system in which we don't sell the product, we give our services. तो ये बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग हो जाता है. Explain the concept operating costing. Again 5 to 7 points. Point number 1, operating costing is also called as service costing. It is applicable to those who are not manufacturing or selling any product, but those who are giving the services. Point number 2, the examples are like bus, that is transport service, traveling service, hotels, hospitals, libraries, classes, etc. Point number 3, the cost sheet of service costing. Basically the cost sheet of manufacturing company or entity is divided in 4 parts, but in case of service costing the cost sheet is basically divided in 2 parts. A, operating cost, that is directly related cost, and second, non-operating cost. Point number 4, the operating cost may include, in case of let's say transportation service, driver salary, conductor salary, petrol or diesel, etc. While indirect cost, that is non-operating cost, will include accountant salary. Next, point number 5, the most important factor about the service sector or operating costing system is that it need to have multiple or dual unit. For example, for transportation we have to consider cost per ton kilometer, that is per ton per kilometer. In case of traveling the cost comes to cost per passenger kilometer. In case of hotels it comes to cost per meal per person. In case of lodging boarding it is cost per person per room, etc. Thus the cost sheet is to be prepared with proper skills. ये हो गया शॉर्ट नोट. ये आपके कॉस्ट यूनिट हो गए, पर पैसेंजर किलोमीटर वगैरह जो मैंने अभी डिस्कस किया. Discuss the use of service costing concept relating to management decision. So why it is required? So small 3 मार्क का क्वेश्चन आ सकता है. अगेन थोड़ा इंट्रोडक्शन दे दो, एक दो पॉइंट्स का, और आगे लिख दीजिए पॉइंट नंबर 4 और 3. The service costing help the management to take some important decisions. For example, how much cost is to be charged per passenger per kilometer, how much a hotel should charge for 1 room per person, regarding electricity manufacturer, how much, or that is service provider, how much charges to be done for each kilowatt hour, etc. So such kind of things can be done. Also we can add one point, also in case of organizations where some supporting departments are there, their cost is also to be absorbed by the production department. Here also this knowledge can be useful. So this was all about service costing, operating costing, which was very simple. चलो हमारी 50 हो गई, 51 शॉर्ट नोट्स वी हैव सीन. आगे बढ़ते हैं विदाउट टेकिंग द ब्रेक. ओवरहेड्स एंड एक्टिविटी बेस्ड कॉस्टिंग. Explain the concept overhead, its meaning and importance. Again 5 to 7 point. Every organization is involved in two types of cost. First is direct cost, which is directly connected with production, and second is indirect cost, which is supporting cost, also called as overheads. In case of manufacturing organizations, the overheads can be divided with different bases in different types, but due to the functions, it can be divided in three parts. First, factory overhead, second, office overhead, third, selling overhead. Point number 3, overheads are not directly connected with production, thus distribution of overhead becomes a big challenge. Point number 5, thus the overheads are to be distributed following 3 steps. First, allocation, second, apportionment or primary distribution, and third, reapportionment or secondary distribution. So bas. And last point you can say, the overheads are actually not connected with the production but still plays very important role, because many times if the overheads are ignored and not recovered, the organization may go into loss. Khatam. Okay, short. Now how the overheads are classified? Classification of overheads, पहले एक दो point लिख दो, introduction वाले overheads क्या होते हैं and all that. Then classification is function wise classification is production, admin and selling overhead. आप क्या करते हो उसके लिए, उसका डिटेल दिया है, वो आगे जाते हैं. Element wise classification, indirect material, indirect labor, indirect expenses. Behavior wise classification, variable overheads, fixed overheads and semi variable, that is combination of fixed and variable overheads. So these are all the different classifications of overheads. And what are the methods for classification of overheads? पहले आप फिर से एक introduction दे दो, different classification लिख दो, फिर methods की तरफ आइए. The mnemonic method. The mnemonic method uses the codes or letters for distribution. For example, when I'm paying the overhead, let's say I have paid 5 lakh rupees, and if I have added the code AD, AD means what? Administration overhead. If I recorded RE, means it will be for repairs, MA for maintenance. So I will add the codes for each type of expenditure paid. The decimal method. This is the system of numerical codes and generally preferred for mechanical sorting and tabulating the conjunction of the punched cards. Example, 08 means service department. Now here in this step, the further code will be given to which department it will go. So when I am adding, let's say SAL 08 means SAL is salary, 08 means for service department. SAL is salary, 0801 means for stores department, like this. So this was all about the overheads, but I think some other questions can also be added, like what are the steps in distribution of overheads. So it can be allocation of, पहले introduction दे दो, फिर steps लिखो. Third point से, step 1 is allocation of overhead, means overhead of particular department are transferred to that department only. Then primary distribution or apportionment, here the overheads are distributed among all the departments, that is production and service, using the common base as follows. पीछे table दे दो. For example, rent, base for division, table बनाओ. Base for distribution is area. Electricity, number of light points or area. Supervisor salary, number of workers. Canteen expenses, number of workers, like this. And third step, redistribution or reapportionment or secondary distribution. Here the cost of service department is transferred or distributed among production departments using different methods, like A, repeated distribution method, B, simultaneous equation method, C, step ladder method, and D, trial and error method. अभी अगली शॉर्ट नोट आ सकती है, एक्सप्लेन डिफरेंट मेथड्स फॉर डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ ओवरहेड. फिर से वही, कोई भी एक भी मेथड पूछिए या सारी, तो पहले इंट्रोडक्शन दे दो, कि प्रॉपर इंट्रोडक्शन देने का, कि ओवरहेड्स मींस इनडायरेक्ट एक्सपेंसेस विच इंक्लूड फैक्ट्री ऑफिस वगैरह वगैरह. फिर लीजिए अभी मेथड. मेथड नंबर ए, रिपीटेड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन मेथड. In this method, the cost of particular service department is distributed among all the production department as well as other service departments also, using the common base or percentage of service given. This method is also called as reciprocal method. Reciprocal मतलब दोनों साइड से. Reason being, each service department accept that it is giving the service to the other department and receiving the service also. Second, simultaneous equation method. Actually, it's a mathematical shortcut method of repeated distribution method. Here, the equation is formed between the particular service department giving service to each other. then the cost is solved between these two service department first, and then remaining cost or the new cost is distributed among production department only. So the answer by first and second method always comes to be same. Third, step ladder method, it is also called as non-reciprocal method because it assumes that when one service department get the service from the other, but it do not give the service to the other department. Thus, for example, service 1, S1 department cost will be distributed among P1, P2, P3 production department, but not to S2 and S3. Then S2's cost or total overheads will be distributed among P1, P2, P3 and only S3. And finally, S3 will be distributed, overhead of S3 will be distributed among P1, P2, P3 only. So in this way, step ladder method is called as non-reciprocal method. And fourth is trial and error method is not actually the method. Here the department manager takes the decision and make the distribution according to their internal discussion. So ये सब कुछ हो गया distribution में. एक और शॉर्ट नोट मुझे लगता है आ सकती है, व्हाट इज ओवरहेड एब्जॉर्प्शन रेट. सो ओवरहेड एब्जॉर्प्शन रेट फिर से एक बार फिर से वो लिख दो, ओवरहेड इज क्योंकि एक ही तो सवाल आने वाला है भाई ओवरहेड का, वो पूरा लिखो ना. फिर थर्ड पॉइंट आप लिखोगे द ओवरहेड्स आर बेसिकली प्रिडिक्टेड एट द बिगिनिंग ऑफ द ईयर इन द कॉस्टिंग सिस्टम. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इफ द लास्ट ईयर्स ओवरहेड्स वेर 5 lakh in 50,000 machine hours, then the overhead rate comes to ₹10 per machine hour. Then in the next year, if actually 8,000 hours work was done, so 8,000 into 10, ये 0.4 हुआ, 8,000 into 10, that is 80,000 are allowed or expected overhead called as absorbed overhead. Point number 5. Now if the actual overhead comes to 1 lakh, then there is 20,000 extra payment and called as under absorption, means expected कम था. And next point, if actual overhead comes to only 60,000, it means there is saving called as over absorption. अभी ये हो गया under and over absorption, sorry overhead recovery rate तो हो गया, under over absorption भी हो गया. शॉर्ट नोट ये भी आ सकती है कि ट्रीटमेंट ऑफ अंडर एंड ओवर एब्जॉर्प्शन, तो वो इसी में ऐड कर रहा हूँ. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, इन केस ऑफ ओवर एब्जॉर्प्शन दैट इज सेविंग, द डिफरेंस अमाउंट इज डायरेक्टली ट्रांसफर्ड टू कॉस्टिंग P&L. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, इन केस ऑफ अंडर एब्जॉर्प्शन दैट इज एक्स्ट्रा पेमेंट, the reasons are analyzed, that is normal reason or abnormal reason. Next point, the normal, in case of normal reason, the under absorbed overheads are distributed, that is the cost is distributed among good units, sorry among good units. And next, if it is abnormal reason, then it is directly transferred to costing P&L account. ये भी हो गया. देखो कुछ शॉर्ट नोट्स तो मैं ऐड कर रहा हूँ. एक और शॉर्ट नोट हो सकती है ब्लैंकेट ओवरहेड रेट वर्सेस मल्टीपल ओवरहेड रेट. तो ब्लैंकेट फिर से वही ओवरहेड्स दे दो, फिर ओवरहेड एब्जॉर्प्शन रेट का मतलब बता दो, दैट इज द पर आर रेट इज कैलकुलेटेड एट द बिगिनिंग. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट नंबर ऑलमोस्ट 4 आएगा. इफ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, जस्ट अ सेकंड ना, ये टीवी ऑन कर ले. या इफ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इज having the similar type of department, for example all the departments are manufacturing department, then it can use a common base for distribution of overhead. It is called as the blanket overhead absorption rate. But just a second, थोड़ा सा setting में गड़बड़ हुआ है. But if the organization has different type of department, like some are production, some are service department, in that case the different overhead absorption rate should be used for each department, called as multiple overhead distribution or overhead absorption rate. For example, point number 5, 6, for example, if the department is labor oriented, then the labor hour rate will be calculated, but if it is machine oriented, then machine hour rate will be calculated. So this is the difference between the blanket rate versus multiple overhead rate. हो गया. थोड़ा सा यहाँ पे डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया तो एडजस्ट कीजिएगा, मैं करता हूँ उसको चेक. एक मिनट, थोड़ा कुछ कनेक्शन लूज हो गया, मैं कर लेता हूँ एक बार. अभी तब तक आप बताओ कैसे लगा आपको, यहाँ तक कंफर्टेबल हो क्या आप? तब तक मैं ये कर लेता हूँ। कभी कभी कुछ चीजें हो जाती है तो समझ में नहीं आता क्या हुआ है। चेक कर लेता हूँ। एनीवे अच्छी चीजों में कभी ना कुछ होता रहता है, तो उसके लिए हमने तैयार रहना चाहिए। अब ज़्यादा टेंशन मत लो, मैं अभी कर देता हूँ ये ठीक। ओके, आ गया। आई विश अभी ऐसे रहेगा भैया, एग्जाम है बच्चों की। अब हम अगले चैप्टर की तरफ जाते हैं, जॉब एंड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कॉस्टिंग। सो हमने ऑलमोस्ट यहाँ पे अभी 55 आ रहा है, 2-4 मैंने शॉर्ट नोट्स ऐड कर दी, तो ऑलमोस्ट हम ऑलरेडी 60 तक आ गए। एनीवे नंबर डजंट मैटर। डिस्कस द मीनिंग एंड फीचर्स ऑफ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कॉस्टिंग। पॉइंट नंबर 1, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट इज अ लॉन्ग टर्म जॉब which takes more than one financial year for its completion. For example, construction of a flyover can be treated as a contract. Due to the long life of this contract, there is always a risk that when it will be, or till the point it is completed, the material prices may go up, labor cost may go up, and that is why there is a risk, and thus the conservatism principle is followed in contract costing. Point number 4, for every different contract, a different trading P&L account is prepared, which is called as contract account, in which all expenses are debited and incomes are credited. At the end of every year, when the profit is calculated, profit or loss is calculated, if the loss comes, then it is directly transferred to P&L account, costing P&L account. Point number 6, if there is a profit, in that case, the total profit is not transferred to costing P&L directly, but the proportionate amount is calculated, like the stage of completion is calculated. Let's say total contract cost is 10 lakh and till now only 4 lakh is paid, means 40% contract is completed. That much profit is transferred to P&L and the remaining profit is kept in reserves to considering the future risk. So in this way, contract costing is a system used for accounting for a particular contract following the conservatism principle. याद है ना conservatism क्या होता है? Conservatism का मतलब जल्दबाजी मत करो, जब प्रॉफिट आएगा तभी लेंगे। अकाउंट्स वाला था सीए फाउंडेशन। ओके, टाइप्स ऑफ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट सिंपल है, फिक्स कॉन्ट्रैक्ट प्लस कॉस्ट प्लस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट। चलो कॉस्ट प्लस पे एक शॉर्ट नोट ही ले लेते हैं, फिक्स पे क्या होगा। इन केस ऑफ फिक्स कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट प्राइस इज फिक्स्ड एंड एनी एक्सपेंडिचर इज टू बी बोर्न बाय the contractee only, contractor only. Contractee is a person who gives the contract, contractor is the person who gets the contract and perform it. Example भी दे दो, for example, if municipal corporation has given a contract to construct a flyover or small flyover to ABC Limited, then municipal corporation is a contractee and ABC Limited is a contractor. So second type of contract is cost plus contract. In this situation, a basic contract price is fixed. बट इफ आई एम सॉरी, ये फिर से डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया, लेकिन आप सुनते रहो, डोंट वरी। बट इफ द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, इफ द प्राइजेस गोज अप और लेबर कॉस्ट, मटेरियल कॉस्ट गोज अप, देन द एडिशनल अमाउंट विल बी एडेड इन द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट अमाउंट कॉल्ड एज कॉस्ट प्लस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. सो what are the cost, what is the advantage of cost plus contract? The advantage to the contractor is that, एडवांटेजेस आप सुनते रहो अगर कुछ हो गया तो, एडवांटेजेस टू द कॉन्ट्रैक्टर इज दैट ही इज नेवर वरीड अबाउट द इंक्रीजिंग कॉस्ट बिकॉज इट विल बी एडेड इन द फाइनल पेमेंट अमाउंट. फॉर कॉन्ट्रैक्टी अगेन इट इज बेनिफिटेड दैट इफ देर इज एनी डिस्काउंट इन प्राइजेस और रिडक्शन इन प्राइजेस ही विल गेट दैट बेनिफिट ऑल्सो. सो इट इज बोथ वे एक्सेप्टेबल टू बोथ. नेक्स्ट शॉर्ट नोट में कम, व्हाट आर द कॉस्ट रिलेटेड विद द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. सो अगेन थोड़ा सा इंट्रोडक्शन दे दो, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट इज अ लॉन्ग टर्म जॉब वगैरह. पॉइंट नंबर 3 आएगा, द कॉस्ट एसोसिएटेड विद द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कैन बी अगेन डायरेक्ट कॉस्ट और इनडायरेक्ट कॉस्ट. Next point, direct cost related with the contract means the actual cost paid for running or completing that contract. For example, workers working on the contract. Any architect, if he has designed something for that contract itself, then any cost which is directly connected to complete that contract, that is direct cost. And indirect cost is the cost, just a second. Okay, continue करते हैं. Indirect cost are the cost which are not directly connected with the contract but which are supporting to the contract. I repeat, अगर ये डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया तो टेंशन मत लो, मैं बैठा हूं यहाँ पे आपको सिखा रहा हूं. So indirect cost are supporting to the contract. For example, accountant salary. अब ये accountant कॉमन है सारे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट के लिए, सॉरी आप इंग्लिश में लिखोगे ना. The accountant is common for all the contracts and that is why his salary will be distributed among the different contracts and it is indirect cost to contract. Just give me a second. कुछ ना आज वायर का लूज कनेक्शन हो गया शायद. लेकिन आप डिस्कनेक्ट नहीं हो ना, भले ये डिस्कनेक्ट होता रहता है तो आप रुकना, आपके लिए कुछ अच्छा चल रहा है. जस्ट अ सेकेंड ना, अच्छी चीजों में ना कुछ डिस्टर्बेंस आ ही जाता है. मजेदार चीज है कि मैं जब भी हेल्प करने के लिए कॉल करता हूँ ना नीचे मैनेजमेंट को, तभी ये चालू हो जाता है. शायद मैनेजमेंट से बहुत डरता है ये. ओके, सो डायरेक्ट कॉस्ट एंड इनडायरेक्ट कॉस्ट दैट वी हैव सीन. मटेरियल हो गया, लेबर हो गया, डायरेक्ट एक्सपेंसेस, ये सारे डायरेक्ट कॉस्ट होंगे. व्हाट इज रिटेंशन मनी, हाउ इट इज यूज्ड. अगेन छोटा सा शॉर्ट नोट है 3-4 पॉइंट का. रिटेंशन मनी व्हेन द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, फिर से एक बार शुरुआत कर दो. कॉन्ट्रैक्ट क्या होता है, कॉन्ट्रैक्टर कौन होता है, कॉन्ट्रैक्टी कौन होता है. पॉइंट नंबर 4, it is ultimately it is expected that the amount is to be paid by the contractee to the contractor, but unless and until the contract is completed, the contractee will not pay the full amount. So what contractee does, he or she maintains some reserve with him or her. For example, point number 5, for example, if the total contract expenses paid, or if 30% of the contract is completed this year and contract amount is 10 lakh, so ideally contractee should pay 3 lakh rupees to the contractor. But if there is a clause of 20% retention, means out of 3 lakh 60,000 will not be paid by the contractee, only 2 lakh 40,000 will be paid. So 60,000 is a retention money. And last point, when the contract is completed, the total retention money is paid by the contractee to the contractor and the job is contract is completed. Discuss the issues relating to the provision of uncompleted contract that we have already covered. That when if there is a loss, and now these are the old formula, ye chhod do aap. If there is a loss, then it is debited, full amount is debited to P&L account. But if there is any profit, in that case the stage of completion is calculated, and to the extent of that stage of completion, profit is transferred to P&L. Remaining profit goes in reserves, that we have already discussed. नेक्स्ट शॉर्ट नोट मे कम ऑन एस्केलेशन क्लॉज. एस्केलेटर ये वर्ड हमने सुना है, राइट? तो चलो शॉर्ट नोट में आते. एस्केलेटर मतलब ऊपर जाना, वैसे वो नीचे भी आता है, लेकिन एस्केलेट होने का बेसिक मतलब होता है ऊपर जाना. तो ये एस्केलेशन क्लॉज क्या है? लेट्स गो फॉर द शॉर्ट नोट. अगेन फर्स्ट पॉइंट लिख दो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट क्या है. सेकंड पॉइंट लिख दो इसका लॉन्ग ड्यूरेशन है. थर्ड पॉइंट लिख दो ड्यू टू लॉन्ग ड्यूरेशन द प्राइजेस मे गो अप और मटेरियल प्राइजेस और लेबर कॉस्ट. पॉइंट नंबर 4 से स्टार्ट कर रहा हूं. Thus, considering the risk of increase in cost, the contractor keep one clause in the agreement that if there is any increase in material prices or labor rates, then the either full amount or proportionate amount will be paid by the contractee to the contractor in addition. This clause in the contract is called as escalation clause. Point number 5. Thus, if the prices goes up, then the contractee will pay the additional amount. But if the prices comes down, then contractee will get the benefit and the amount will be reduced. That is called as de-escalation. And last point, but we have to remember that the additional amount will be paid if and only if material prices or labor rate goes up, not the material quantity or labor hours. Thus, there will not be any escalation for increase in material quantity or labor hours. That means any inefficiency of worker will not be covered here. इस पे क्वेश्चन भी आया था, स्टैंडर्ड कॉस्टिंग में था, हमने सॉल्व किया. कॉस्ट प्लस वी हैव ऑलरेडी सीन. So this was all about the contract costing. I hope you are comfortable with this. अब जाते हैं प्रोसेस कॉस्टिंग की तरफ. Just a second. कुछ जरा आपको अच्छा लग रहा है तो जरा डालो. अच्छा नहीं लगा तो मुझे मैसेज करो. ओके कोई अगर लेट ज्वाइन हुआ है तो हर एक टॉपिक से पहले मैं बता रहा हूं कि इस नोट्स, ये जो नोट्स आपको स्क्रीन पे दिख रही है, तो ये सारी जो शॉर्ट नोट्स हैं इसको मैंने अपने इसी वीडियो के डिस्क्रिप्शन में एक लिंक डाली है, उसको क्लिक कीजिए, आपको मिल जाएगी, आप डाउनलोड कर सकते हो. और अगर आपको हमसे कांटेक्ट करना है, कुछ हेल्प चाहिए तो 8237218218 पे आप कांटेक्ट कर सकते हो. ओके चलो आगे बढ़ते हैं. नाउ आई एम कमिंग टू द प्रोसेस कॉस्टिंग. एक और ज्यादा इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक. जब प्रैक्टिकल आता है तो बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग हो जाता है. तो सवाल आता है कि प्रोसेस कॉस्ट क्या है, इसका फायदा क्या है. सिंपल शॉर्ट नोट 5 to 6 पॉइंट. पॉइंट नंबर 1, प्रोसेस is a combination of different manufacturing sub processes. For example, the coconut oil manufacturing process may include the sub processes like crushing the coconuts, refining, double refining, packing, repacking, etc. Point number 2, each process is actually a separate part of main process, or each sub process is actually a part of main process, and that is why the cost of each process must be known separately. Point number 3, it will help us to decide whether that process, sub-process is to be continued or not. Thus, point number 4, a separate trading account is prepared for each process showing the quantity as well as cost, and that particular trading account is called as process account. All the expenses related to that process are debited in the process account, and any sale from that process or any transfer to the next process is credited. Point number 6, while preparing the process account, normal loss, that is expected loss, abnormal loss, that is unexpected loss, and abnormal gain, that is unexpected gain, are also considered. Thus, in this way, process costing is a useful tool for the manufacturer to take the call about a particular process. Discuss the cost involved in the process. All the costs related to a particular process are called as process cost, and they are debited in the process account, like material cost of that process, labor cost, then overheads, etc. Sometimes some costs are common and these are distributed among all the processes. Explain the concept normal loss, abnormal gain. Again introduction वाला part आप दे दो, right? Third point आएगा. Whenever there is a process, there are supposed to be some losses which are expected and unavoidable. These are called as normal loss. Next point number 5 or 4. Sometimes the actual loss of material is more than expected, and this unexpected loss is called as abnormal loss. इसी में example दे दो. For example, by making input of 10,000 kg raw material, it was expected that 10% is normal loss. That means 9,000 finished goods units were expected. But actually finished goods received were 8,800, means additional 200 units loss is abnormal loss. Next point, sometimes the actual loss is less than expected loss and the organization get extra production units, then it is called as abnormal gain. In the above example, if instead of 9,000, organization received 9,300 units, it means 300 are unexpectedly more units, called as abnormal gain. Next point आप लिख सकते हो, normal loss is absorbed by good units. Next point, abnormal loss is deducted from the sales price of that abnormal lost units, if any, and then final loss is debited to costing P&L. And next point, abnormal gain is used to absorb the normal loss, if any, in that particular process, and further abnormal gain is credited to costing P&L account. Perfect answer, full marks. ये पढ़ने की भी जरूरत नहीं, वीडियो देख लो, बस सुन लो, मैं तो कहता हूँ. So that was all about the process costing. और कुछ हो सकता है, इंटर प्रोसेस प्रॉफिट ऐसा एक शॉर्ट नोट शायद आ सकता है, तो उसमें लिख दूंगा कि अगेन वही इंट्रोडक्शन दे दूंगा पहले, सब प्रोसेस एंड ऑल दैट. थर्ड या फोर्थ पॉइंट आएगा, द finished goods of a particular process becomes the raw material of the next process. Thus, there is internal transfer of material from one process to another. Fourth या fifth point आएगा, this transfer can be at cost or sometimes the profit is added by the giving department or process to the receiver process. It is called as inter-process profit. Next point, in this case, the format of process account changes and in which profit element is shown separately than cost. Next point, the profit added or the price at which the goods are transferred after adding the profit becomes the cost for the next process. And last I can write, in the ultimately the profit of each process in total will become the profit of organization. Khatam. Right? So that can be a short note. So we have already crossed 65 plus short notes. अभी हम जा रहे हैं यूनिट और बैच कॉस्टिंग की तरफ. Discuss the concept job along with its meaning and purpose. Job, point number again 5 to 6 points. Job is a particular work to be done by a person, generally of a smaller life. For example, fabrication of window, that is fabricated window for a particular person. Point number 2, every job can have different features. For example, Mr. A received an order to give the fabricated grill for a window first and thereafter again got a job for a fabricated door. Now in this case, even if the job is of fabrication, but still all the dimensions are different, thus both the jobs are different. Point number 3, thus for each job we have to prepare a separate cost sheet because all the dimensions are different. The jobs are not depending on each other. Its life is very small, say of 3 months, 5 months. So whatever is the job profit is ultimately transferred to the costing P&L immediately. Job cost sheet we have seen in practical part. Job cost sheet. Now what is batch costing and what is its use? Point number 1, batch is an extension or batch costing is an extension of job costing. Point number 2, a batch is a combination of some units which are to be manufactured at once only. For example, in case of printing of invitation card, if we demand 25 units of invitation card only, still the printer charges the amount for 1000 cards at a time. Reason being, the manufacturer will be at break-even point, that is no loss, no profit point, at 1000 units only. So that is a minimum batch size for him. Thus, next point number 3, thus batch costing is a system which is applicable to those who manufacture the product in batches, that is of a particular units. Point number 4, thus we have to prepare a cost sheet separately for each batch and not for each job. That batch itself will become one job. Next, here to find out the ideal quantity of batch, we need to find out EBQ, economic batch quantity, with the following formula under root 2AS upon C that we have already seen. So in short मैं आपको एक बताऊँ क्या, बहुत सिंपल सी चीज है कि आपको है ना आपके लैंग्वेज में थ्योरी लिखनी है, बिल्कुल उनके लैंग्वेज में नहीं जाना है. मैंने कभी नहीं लिखा है, ऑलवेज गॉट एग्जाम्पशन इन कॉस्टिंग, बट द थिंग इज दैट मैंने कभी भी उनके लैंग्वेज में नहीं लिखा. जस्ट लाइक मैं आई एम टीचिंग समवन, जस्ट लाइक आई एम हेल्पिंग माई फ्रेंड टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस कंसेप्ट. जैसे हम एक दूसरे से बात करते हैं ना, वैसे ही लिखो. पैराग्राफ में बिल्कुल मत लिखो, टू द पॉइंट लिखो. जॉब बैच कॉन्ट्रैक्ट वी हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड. नेक्स्ट कम्स कॉस्ट शीट. डिस्कस द क्लासिफिकेशन ऑफ कॉस्ट फ्रॉम डिफरेंट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. ये हम ऑलरेडी देख चुके हैं कि कॉस्ट शीट, पहले इंट्रोडक्शन लिख दो. कॉस्ट शीट इज अ स्टेटमेंट which record all types of costs divided in different parts. Point number 2, it is helpful to find out the total cost of a particular product or job and also to find out its selling price. Third point, classification कैसे हो सकता है? Classification on the basis of element of cost can be material cost, labor cost and expenses. उसके बाद classification can be direct expenditure or indirect expenditure, that is overhead also. Or conclusion look though, basically it is divided, cost sheet is divided in 4 parts. Direct expenses, total called as prime cost, then factory overhead, office overhead, and selling and distribution overhead. Direct cost we have already discussed. Direct cost is something which is directly connected with the production. In case of cost sheet, the direct cost or direct expenditure include 3 headings: direct material consumed, direct expenses, and direct wages. And in total it is called as prime cost. While indirect cost is the cost which is supporting to the production, and it is also called as overhead. Next point, it is divided in 3 parts: factory overhead, office overhead, selling overhead. If you want to give an example, for example, company paid 50,000 each to its 4 employees. It will be classified as follows: A, direct worker dash direct expense, factory supervisor factory overhead, accountant office overhead, salesman selling and distribution overhead. So in this way the cost is divided in 2 parts. एक proper conclusion दे दो बस, ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं. सर फिर आपने इतना क्यों लिखा है, अभी क्या करें, वो तो रेगुलर के लिए लिखना पड़ता है ना भाई. What is the classification of cost as per its behavior? हमने पहले ही देखा है, variable cost, fixed cost and semi variable cost. Variable cost is always same per unit, but it changes in total because it is changing proportionately with the level of production. Fixed cost is always same in total, but per unit it changes because more are the units, fixed cost per unit will be same. Semi variable or semi fixed or mixed cost is a combination of variable and fixed. To some extent it is constant, that is fixed part, and thereafter it changes, so it's a combination of both. We already discussed this. ये भी cost sheet का format already हमने solve कर लिया है. Some concept like cost center, cost unit, profit center, investment center. आप दे सकते हैं, organization is actually a combination of different processes, different departments, and for further classification, it is for further accounting and understanding, it is to be divided in some small parts as follows. First is cost center. Cost center is a center for which the cost is calculated separately. For example, a particular department, particular machinery, particular activity, particular manager also it can be calculated. So cost center is a department, machine, person for which a cost is particularly calculated. Cost unit is something in which the cost is expressed. For example, cost per liter, cost per meter, etc. So it is not a bifurcation, but it is the way of expressing the cost. For example, if we manufacture single product, then we will say cost per unit. If it's a job, cost per job. If it's a batch, then cost of batch of 1000 units, like this. ये लिस्ट दिए, ये देख लो, बहुत बार है ना ये आ जाती है फिल इन द ब्लैंक्स या मैच द पेयर में कि किसको. फॉर एग्जांपल ब्रिक्स पर 1000 होता है, इसके आगे पर लगाना है सबको. पेपर पर रीम होता है, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी पर किलोवाट आवर, ये एक बार देख लो पक्का, इस पे आ सकता है. Profit center, when each segment of the organization is given the responsibility to earn the profit, then it is called as profit center. In case of cost center, only cost is analyzed. In case of profit center, we have to check whether that department or particular product or machine is giving the profit or not, otherwise it will be closed. Investment center, here the investment of each department or job is considered, and whether the return on that investment is received or not, that is calculated. So this was all about the cost sheet. So now coming to the last part of this session, अगर आपको और कोई short notes चाहिए तो मुझे बताइए. एक मैं आपको बता दूं, what is the difference between cost reduction and cost control. फटाक से बता देता हूं. Cost reduction and cost control both are the techniques used by the cost accountant or management accountant. Cost control is a technique where the standard costs are followed. For example, if it is given that a mobile is to be manufactured in 10,000 rupees only, then cost accountant will make sure that it will not exceed 10,000. So the cost control follows the standard. Distinguish अगर आप लिख रहे हो तो ऐसा लिख सकते हो. Cost control is a technique to follow the standard cost. Cost reduction is a technique which challenges the standard cost. वो बोलते हैं क्यों 10,000 में 9,000 में बनाते हैं. Cost reduction. Cost control में responsibility to assure that cost will not exceed the standard cost. Here responsibility to assure that cost will be reduced from the standard cost. Connection with standard cost, it follows standard cost, it challenges standard cost. क्वालिटी का तो ठीक है, खैर वो एज्यूम्ड है कि दोनों में सेम ही रहेगा. एफर्ट्स, cost control needs efforts to maintain the cost. Cost reduction needs more efforts because it has to challenge the cost without affecting the quality of the product. That's a distinguish between cost control and cost reduction. So in this way we have seen so many short notes, almost मुझे लगता है 70 plus short, 76 मतलब 80 plus short notes हमने देख ली, कुछ मैंने कुछ ऐड भी की है. तो आई थिंक एज अ स्टूडेंट अगर ये 2 hours 1 hour 55 minutes का एक वीडियो बना है, 2 hours का एक अगर वीडियो है, अगर मैं इसको 1.5 स्पीड से भी देखता हूँ तो 1 hour और लेट्स से कुछ मिनट्स में ये मेरा वीडियो कंप्लीट हो सकता है और मेरे दिमाग में इतना खतरनाक फिट हो जाएगा ना भाई कि मुझे कुछ टेंशन की बात नहीं है. तो आई थिंक दिस कैन बी द बेस्ट गिफ्ट आई कैन गिव टू ऑल अवर कॉस्टिंग स्टूडेंट्स, दोज हु विश टू गेन वेरी गुड मार्क्स इन कॉस्टिंग. तो आप ये वीडियो जरूर देखिए. ये नोट्स अगर आपको चाहिए तो डाउनलोड कर लीजिए फटाफट. अगर आपको आंखों के नीचे से लेके जाना है तो मैं कहूंगा कि अगर आपका एग्जाम है, कल ही एग्जाम है फॉर एग्जांपल, तो आज 1 hour 30 minutes आप इन्वेस्ट कीजिए वीडियो फिर से एक बार देखने के लिए. कल सुबह फिर से फटाफट स्पीड डबल करके एक बार सुन लीजिए. जब आप कुछ खा रहे हो, ब्रेकफास्ट कर रहे हो, तब आपके स्पीकर पे लगा दो या लैपटॉप पे लगा दो और सुनते रहो. 1 hour टू बी इन्वेस्टेड टुमारो. थ्योरी वाला एक पार्ट खतरनाक लेवल पे हो जाएगा. और नोट्स अगर आपको जो भी चाहता है, लगता है कि हाँ ये वाली चीज देख लेता हूँ, आई रिपीट दीज आर डिटेल नोट्स, ऑलमोस्ट 151 पेजेस हैं. प्रैक्टिकली पॉसिबल नहीं है हाँ सारे आंसर देखना, लेकिन जो लगता है कि एक बार डेप्थ में देख लेते हैं देख लो, राइट. सो आई विश कि ये आपको बहुत हेल्पफुल रहे. हमें जरूर बताइए कि आपको कैसे अच्छा लगा. बताने के लिए दोनों तरीके हैं, इसी वीडियो पे कमेंट कीजिए या 8237218218 पे आप व्हाट्सअप कर दीजिए कि सर मैंने आपका वीडियो देखा, मुझे अच्छा लगा, सर मैंने आपका वीडियो देखा और अच्छा हो सकता था, थोड़ा ये चीजें आप करना चाहिए था, आपकी नोट्स अच्छी लगी या नहीं लगी, जो भी है आप हमें व्हाट्सअप करके भी बता सकते हो. और हमारे चैनल को जरूर लाइक और सब्सक्राइब कीजिए. हम थोड़े से इस एरिया में न्यू है तो हमें थोड़ा सा टाइम लगता है ये चीजें बताने में और समझने में भी. और एक और चीज कि अगर आपको ये वीडियो अच्छा लगा है तो इसकी लिंक लीजिए और आपके फ्रेंड्स को भेज दीजिए कि भाई देख कल कॉस्टिंग है, तेरा भी भला हो जाएगा. सो गो फॉर इट एंड लेट अस नो. और हमें फॉलो सब्सक्राइब जो भी होता है वो जरूर कीजिए. हम इंस्टाग्राम पे भी है, वहां पे भी आइए. और अगर आपको अच्छा लगा तो रिकमेंड कीजिए, राइट. चलो थैंक यू. और एफएम से पहले भी मैं थ्योरी का ऐसा ही सेशन लेके आने वाला हूँ. इफ यू आर इंटरेस्टेड वो भी कमेंट में डाल दीजिए, व्हाट्सएप पे भेज दीजिए. मैं एफएम को भी बहुत आसान थ्योरेटिकल पार्ट को करके आपके सामने आता हूँ. थैंक यू. ओके, ऑल द बेस्ट फॉर योर एग्जाम. और हाँ, एक वीडियो अपलोड होने वाला है थोड़ी देर बाद जिसमें मैं 10 हिंट्स देने वाला हूं जो आपकी एग्जाम कॉस्टिंग की बहुत आसान कर देगी. तो अब ये खत्म हो जाए, थोड़ा सांस ले लूं और फिर उसके बाद एक वीडियो और डाल रहा हूं, जरूर वो वीडियो देखिएगा और शेयर भी कीजिए. थैंक यू. चलो आज यहीं पे रुकते हैं, लेकिन प्लीज मुझे बताना ये कैसे लगा, सो दैट नेक्स्ट टाइम वीडियो बताते वक्त मुझे और मजा आएगा. थैंक यू.